Chapter 1912. The gorgeous flowing light that almost covered the entire sky finally began to collapse inch by inch after a short pause. The god-destroying tribulation shattered into countless pieces of starlight and fell into the 3,000 god domains that filled the sky. It was like a river of stars splashing down, and countless brilliant lights flew up. The strong wind blew and the woman's red dress fluttered. All kinds of beautiful and brilliant lights flickered around her, but they were not as bright as her. The scene seemed to be frozen, but she was 1,000 times more intense than the faint ink. All of a sudden it seemed to give people an illusion. The sky fell and the earth cracked, and she was the only god. Countless people looked up with dazed expressions, and this scene was forever engraved in their hearts. No matter how much time had passed, there would always be people who would remember that there was once a woman who single-handedly turned the tide in such a dangerous situation. She was the one who made the flowing light flow backward. She was the one who made the rushing flow backward. She was the one who truly relied on her mortal body to withstand the god-destroying tribulation. The thick smell of blood spread between her lips and teeth. Her heart was beating violently, as if it would jump out of her chest at any time. Her head was throbbing with pain and her last string was pulled tight. A numb and dull pain came from her arms. Sticky dark red blood seeped out from her hands. Chu Liyue took a deep breath and forced herself to swallow this breath. Clang. There seemed to be an invisible hand that was plucking the delicate strings in her body. The sound of the zither was bleak and solemn, but it quickly woke her up. She raised her eyes and looked around. What entered her eyes was a sea of brilliant light. The god-destroying tribulation had collapsed, forming countless brilliant flowing lights that were rushing back and forth in the sky above her. And beneath her feet were the 3,000 god domains that were formed by the stones. Chu Liyue was moved and she sighed softly. The god domains of the gods really can't be underestimated. In the beginning she really had no other way. She finally chose to try this method out of helplessness. She did not dare to have any hope in her heart. After all, when she brought these stones back from the god-destroying mound, they did not seem to be particularly powerful. Although each stone contained a god domain, they were not considered powerful. At that time Chu Liyue also felt that they were too clingy. He couldn't persuade them otherwise, so he chose to take them away. Although these stones were occasionally mischievous, most of the time they were very gentle and obedient. Chu Liyue had never thought that the first time he used them to construct a profound formation, it would erupt with such a powerful and unparalleled power. What surprised her the most was that after these divine domains fused with each other, the surging battle intent increased exponentially. She could even feel an unprecedented and indestructible determination from it. It was a madness and persistence that she had never felt before. It was an astonishing will that had been passed down from the battlefield 10,000 years ago. For a moment, Chu Liyue even thought that it was a god-destroying tribulation. Even if it was the sky, they could completely overturn it. At this moment, a colorful stream of light suddenly flew over. The 13th Yu-guard, who had just calmed down, felt her heart tighten again when she saw this. "Master, be careful." Chu Liyue shook her head lightly, indicating that they didn't need to worry. She didn't feel any threat from that stream of light. On the contrary, she even felt a faint sense of inspiration. This feeling was very subtle and indescribable. However, she knew that it wouldn't hurt her. Soon, that stream of light flew in front of her. As if subconsciously, Chu Liyue stretched out a hand. Her hand had suffered a great amount of pressure when she used the shield to block the god-destroying tribulation. At this moment, it was already badly mutilated. Rong Xiu's phoenix eyes darkened slightly. A trace of coldness flashed across his eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. Immediately after, that stream of light flew into Chu Liyue's hand. The moment it touched her body, that stream of light quickly condensed into a translucent and gorgeous soft armor that gently covered the back of her hand. That thing was only half the size of a palm. Its shape was irregular, but it was extremely exquisite and luxurious. A faint pressure was emitted from it. Chu Liyue was slightly shocked. Soon, the second stream of light flew in and stuck tightly to the first piece of the gorgeous soft armor. At the same time, the wound that was covered by the soft armor began to heal at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, that shocking wound quickly healed and formed a scab. Soon that layer of shallow scar peeled off bit by bit. The wound healed as if it was never there. It didn't look like she had been injured at all. This time even Chu Liyue was shocked. She was a celestial physician. She knew all too well how difficult it was to heal such an injury to its original state. Moreover, it was done in such a short time. More and more streams of light were flying toward her. Just as Chu Liyue was filled with doubts, a wave suddenly came from her dantian. Chu Liyue looked over and was shocked to find that a small illusory figure had appeared in her body without her noticing. It was right under the zither score that had transformed into water droplets. The figure was transparent, but its shape and appearance were exactly the same as Chu Liyue's. At this moment, the right hand of the transparent figure was shining with a gorgeous light. It was exactly the same as the soft armor that covered Chu Liyue's body. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment, and a bold idea suddenly came to her mind. This was a divine body. As soon as this idea came to her mind, it immediately set off huge waves in Chu Liyue's heart. A few years ago, when she came to the Divine Ruins world, although she was in the limelight at Lingxiao College, she hadn't cultivated a divine body at that time. After breaking through to the high god level, she smoothly condensed a godly domain. However, a divine body was different from a godly domain. One had to know that not every high god could cultivate a divine body. There were all kinds of divine bodies in the world. In Lingxiao College, Chu Liyue had read countless books on cultivating a divine body. She had tried to do it more than once. However, she didn't know why she couldn't succeed. She was extremely talented on the path of cultivation. She had never encountered any obstacles along the way. It wasn't until she started to cultivate her divine body that she encountered failure after failure. She was Nansu Huai's only disciple, and all the methods of cultivating a divine body that she had seen and learned were absolutely outstanding. However, no matter which method she tried, she couldn't succeed. In the end, even Nansu Huai couldn't stand it anymore. At that time, he said that since this was the case, it meant that she had a divine body that should belong to her. Only when the opportunity came could she cultivate it. As for the other divine bodies, she wasn't fated to be with them, so there was no need to continue trying. Chu Liyue had always been skeptical about these words. She only thought that her master was comforting her, so she agreed. Since then, she didn't try to cultivate a divine body by force. She never expected that she would have a divine body today. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1913. A thought suddenly flashed across Chu Liyue's mind. This divine body was formed from the power of the God-destroying tribulation. Even she could not help but gasp when she thought of this. Her heart was beating violently. A divine body formed by the God-destroying tribulation. It was easy to imagine how powerful it was. Chu Liyue had imagined countless times what kind of divine body she would cultivate. When this day came, she was shocked and could not recover for a long time. She lowered her eyes slightly. At this moment, more and more beautiful soft armor covered her body. The divine body in her dantian was also condensing. It gradually turned from transparent to gorgeous. Some of the flowing light in the sky flew into the 3,000 god regions. Most of them turned into soft armor and embedded themselves around Chu Liyue. She closed her eyes gently and began to cultivate while holding her breath. The power around her flowed into her body continuously. Her aura was also rising continuously. Everyone was stunned by what they saw. There was dead silence in Peach Blossom Dock City. Everything in front of them changed too quickly. They did not even have time to react. They were facing a life and death crisis a moment ago. In the blink of an eye, the crisis was over. The impact of this was simply too great. The little girl, who was held tightly in her father's arms, was confused. She stretched out her hand and pointed to the sky. She said softly, "Daddy, it's dawn." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was stunned. He looked up instinctively. What he saw stunned him on the spot. Sure enough, a ray of light shone through the originally dark and gloomy sky. Although it was faint, it was there. Moreover, that ray of light seemed to be spreading to the surroundings. After a while, he finally realized something. His eyes widened. The barrier of Peach Blossom Dock is recovering? There was a clap of thunder. Everyone was filled with shock when they heard this. Many pairs of eyes looked at the sky. It seems that the barrier is recovering? Don't you feel that the wild space turbulence seems to be restrained? The mountain fire is also gradually extinguishing. They were in the middle of it. They could feel the changes in the energy most clearly. The space that had been crazily squeezing and contracting seemed to have suddenly stopped, and was gradually returning to its original state. That suffocating pressure also seemed to quietly dissipate. Duan Qingchuan could not help but mutter in a low voice, "Peach Blossom Doc is alive?" Yan Qing let out a long sigh. Her Highness, truly amazing. Actually, it wasn't that he wasn't worried before. However, Master insisted on not making a move. At most he only set up a barrier. But before they could be used, the princess consort had already taken care of them. Gradually, some people in the crowd regained their senses. Is this all thanks to Shangguanyu? As soon as his voice fell, the bustling street immediately fell into a dead silence. Everyone had complicated expressions on their faces. In actual fact, they more or less had some complaints about Tu Liwei previously. If she had not offended the Black Sword sect and the Nan family, perhaps this crisis would not have occurred. However, after experiencing all this, they knew very well that the survival of so many people in Peach Blossom Dock was indeed because of Tu Liwei. She was the one who withstood the god-destroying tribulation. She was also the one who saved the people in the city in time. Peach Blossom Dock, which was about to collapse, was starting to recover bit by bit. Who could say that this was not due to her efforts? In fact, they also knew very well that she was the most innocent one in all of this. The ones who really started this conflict were the Black Sword sect and the Nan family. And now, everyone was relying on her to survive. How could they have the nerve to blame her for all this? Hey, I don't care about others, but my life was indeed saved by Shangguanyu. I owe her a debt of gratitude and I will repay her kindness. In the crowd, a dark-skinned burly man suddenly spoke with a voice full of energy. He cupped his fists and saluted in the direction of Tu Liwei. In the future, if anyone dares to make things difficult for her, don't blame me for not showing mercy. After a short moment of silence, all sorts of voices were heard. Me too. She saved my life and I will remember it in my heart. I heard that the third boss of the U residence is one of her people? I have long wanted to go to the U residence to take a look. When this matter is over, I will go there and see if I can find any work. Haha. You little brat, you're really dreaming. Even if you are willing to go, they might not be willing to accept you. The U residence's vetting is very strict. I think I am quite suitable. To say. You guys are way too selfish. I am different from you. I will not join the U residence, but if that person in the U residence need anything in the future, I will go through water and tread on fire. Many people expressed their opinions and the atmosphere quickly became lively. Duan Qingchuan looked at Yan Qing with a strange expression. The two of them quickly exchanged glances. Yan Qing raised an eyebrow. This was indeed not arranged by them. It seemed that there were really people who wanted to seek refuge with the U residence. But thinking about it carefully, it was normal. Ink Sword sect had been destroyed, and the U residence was one of the best in the entire Peach Blossom Cove. Even if there were some who could compete with them after this incident, they could not be compared to them. After all, everyone now knew that the real master of the U residence was Tu Liwei. In today's battle, Tu Liwei had saved the entire Peach Blossom Cove. Everyone here owed her their lives. Who else could have such an advantage? Besides that, Tu Liu's peerless strength was enough to make countless people admire and follow her. She was a high god, summoned the god-destroying tribulation and won. With such talent and battle strength, how many people in the world could be on par with her? In the Peach Blossom Cove, the strong were respected. And Tu Liwei, after this battle, had undoubtedly become a peerless expert in the hearts of countless people. Tu Liwei held her breath and concentrated. The power of the god-destroying tribulation was gradually being devoured by her. Countless soft armor covered her entire body, and even her neck and face were covered by the translucent soft armor. The last ray of light finally landed in between her eyebrows. The moment it covered her, her eyebrows suddenly burned with a scorching heat. A totem suddenly flashed into existence. Digression. Maybe it was because I fell sick a while ago and my body was overdrawn. I have rested a lot in the past few days and I will try to recover tomorrow. Thank you for your understanding. Wang mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1914. Tu Liwei let out a clear cry. She had achieved the phenomenal success of her divine body. A beautiful soft armor covered her body. It was dazzling. Light poured down from the sky and shone on her body, reflecting fragments of sparkling light. She opened her eyes abruptly. A vast and majestic aura erupted from her body. Everyone was in awe. Even though Chu Liyue was only a high deity, her divine body's suppression was comparable to her eminence's. Chu Liyue exhaled deeply as she felt the vigorous power surging in her body. Phew, so this was what it felt like to have a divine body. She looked down. The Peach Blossom Dock was in a mess. The inside of the city was still fine, but the continuous mountain range outside the city was almost completely destroyed. There were ravines everywhere and there were traces of fire everywhere. The strong smell of blood filled the air. Chu Liyue frowned slightly. She was undoubtedly partly responsible for the Peach Blossom Dock's current state. She raised her hand and put away the shield in her hand. Then she took a step forward. The divine domain under her feet rippled lightly and then quietly dissipated. The stones withdrew their divine domains and returned to their normal grayish-white appearance. Chu Liyue waved her hand and the stones flew back to her. The stones in front of her jumped a few times in front of her, as if they were eager to be praised. The stones in the row behind them also jumped up and fought to be first. If it weren't for the fact that Chu Liyue had repeatedly taught them to be obedient and that nobody was allowed to cut the queue, it would have been a mess by now. Looking at the pile of stones jumping around, Chu Liyue's lips couldn't help but curl up, and a smile appeared in her eyes. Good job. Hearing the praise, the stones were very happy and jumped back into her interspatial ring. Everyone was dumbfounded. Could this be? Chu Liyue did not care about them. After all, they had seen what they should and should not see. In that case, there was nothing to hide. Also, she could take this opportunity to let the people in the Peach Blossom Dock owe her a favor. Actually, she didn't think too much about it at first. But now that things had come to this, it was not without benefits. Most of the energy of the god-destroying tribulation had been swallowed by Chu Liyue to refine his god body. As for the remaining portion, it had fused into the rocks. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that the divine domain above was much stronger than before. This was a pleasant surprise. Finally, Chu Liyue flipped his wrist and took out an item. The people below watched from afar, unable to see clearly. What's that in her hand? I know. It's too small. It looks like a sprout. Just as everyone was puzzled, they saw Chu Liyue gently wave his hand. A verdant leaf swayed in the wind. Then the abundant energy between heaven and earth began to surge. Hula. The energy was like a tide surging violently. A ray of sunlight shone down. In the distance, the enchantment of the Peach Blossom Dock began to reform. Is that Tu Tian baby? Someone murmured in disbelief. Everyone was shocked. That was a rare treasure. Chu Liyue even had this. Just how many trump cards did she have on her? Chu Liyue's motive for summoning the Tu Tian baby was simple. After all the previous torment, the void of the Peach Blossom Dock had collapsed beyond recognition. The energy was rampaging and the entire space was almost completely destroyed. Even though she had successfully passed the god-destroying tribulation, everything here still needed to be sorted out and organized. The Tu Tian baby could easily control the vigorous energy of heaven and earth. Naturally, it was the perfect choice. The result was as expected. With just a thought, the Tu Tian baby began to deal with the chaotic energy. The enchantment of the Peach Blossom Dock quickly reformed. Compared to before, there was a subtle difference. A faint, beautiful light appeared on the enchantment. From afar, it looked like countless colorful light spots were sprinkled on it, emitting a lustrous glow. That was the residual energy of the god-destroying tribulation. However, apart from looking different, the biggest difference between this newly formed enchantment and the previous one was that it was several times stronger than before. In fact, the entire Peach Blossom Dock had undergone the baptism of the god-destroying tribulation and had been reborn. All the unstable void after it had completely collapsed relied on the energy of the god-destroying tribulation to rebuild and become incomparably stable. Abundant energy of heaven and earth surged back and forth. Feeling this huge and subtle change, Chu Liyue sighed deeply in her heart. Destruction followed by reconstruction. This was the Peach Blossom Dock of today. Congratulations, you, Rong Xiu moved and came to Chu Liyue's side. His handsome and charming face was filled with a warm smile. Between his eyebrows, there was undisguised affection and pride. This was his From the beginning to the end, he had insisted on not interfering. Although his heart ached, he knew that she could do it. As expected, This huge peach blossom dock had completely become her domain from now on. In this world there was no one else who could be compared to her. She was the brightest pearl. No matter where she was, she could blossom in a myriad of ways. Chu Luiwei raised her eyes and looked into his deep eyes. She also raised the corners of her lips. With just one look they could understand each other's feelings. She knew that Rongxia was proud of her and happy for her. You already thought of this? Chu Luiwei asked with interest. Rongxia's smile deepened. The god-destroying tribulation. I really didn't expect it. He didn't expect it to come so quickly. In the beginning he didn't interfere because he knew that she was dissatisfied with the Black Sword sect and the Nan family. He wanted to let her fight to her heart's content and vent her dissatisfaction. But later, it was indeed unexpected. Of course she was always able to surprise him. The sky gradually brightened. The flames in various places had already been extinguished. Abundant energy of heaven and earth surged out. The two-Tian baby had an extremely vigorous vitality. In this kind of situation it could play a huge role. Chu Luiwei glanced out of the corner of her eyes. Suddenly she saw that there seemed to be something reflecting the clear light below. She focused her eyes and saw that a lake had appeared in the midst of the messy mountain range. Under the sunlight, the surface of the lake rippled. There were piles of rocks by the lake. A stream flowed down, spreading out into a clear and shallow stream. Fresh green shoots sprouted from the side of the lake. Chu Luiwei widened her eyes slightly. This lake. Looks like I've seen it before. Suddenly a white light flashed in her mind. Isn't this the small space that Sanson had previously? The barrier above was still there. From the outside it still looked like a lake. However, a stream diverged from it and extended all over the mountains and plains. Everywhere it passed, it was a scene full of vitality. A faint fragrance of herbs pervaded the air. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1915. Ouch. My baby. Sanson's heart ached when she saw this. Little Hachi rolled her eyes. What are you yelling for? Isn't it just a portion of the energy from that small space? This is a good thing for the entire Peach Blossom Dock and our master. Don't delay it. Sanson's cheeks twitched as she felt wronged. Although little Hachi was younger in terms of seniority, no one in the 13U sect dared to argue with her except for her big brother. Even as the third brother he felt the same way. I know. I'm just feeling sorry for you. With the nourishment from that small space, the Peach Blossom Dock, which was almost completely destroyed, would recover at a much faster speed. Along the banks of the stream, if nothing went wrong, there should be many heavenly treasures growing in the future. This was a huge fortune. As long as the Peach Blossom Dock could recover quickly, it would be great for their master. After today the entire Peach Blossom Dock will belong to our master, 13 muttered softly. There was still a look of shock on his face, which still had a hint of youthfulness, and it hadn't faded away. He had always known that his master was powerful. But over the years he had spent most of his time with his big brother and the rest. When he was by his master's side it was actually pitiful. Plus he was young and had never seen Chu Luiwei fight with his own eyes. And this time it had undoubtedly brought him a huge shock. Sun Yi's eyes relaxed and a trace of a smile appeared in his usually indifferent eyes. This was the master's intention for coming here this time. But he didn't expect that after all these twists and turns, it would be completed smoothly in advance. And the entire Peach Blossom Dock was taken care of. His master didn't like the options that Sanson had given him. Now that the last hidden danger of Peach Blossom Dock was eliminated, his master would take over directly. There was no better result than this. The Nan family. In the study, Nan Yifan stood silently. It was already nighttime. The bright moon hung high in the sky. The cool moonlight flowed in through the window, elongating his shadow. He had been standing in this position from day to night for an entire day. The night wind was cold and his whole body was icy cold. But Nan Yifan didn't feel it at all. He lowered his head slightly. His face was hidden in the darkness and couldn't be seen clearly. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Patriarch, you haven't eaten for a day. Why don't you have some food? The one who spoke was his confidant, an elder of the Nan family. It was difficult to conceal the worry in his voice. In fact, to powerhouses at their level, not eating for a day was nothing. The reason why this elder was so worried was because he sensed that something was wrong with Nan Yifan's condition. The last time he was like this was on the day of Nan Yi's funeral. But at that time he had only stood for half a day. But this time, something had clearly happened, and it was even more terrifying than Nan Yi's death. The elder standing outside the door was burning with anxiety. Nan Yi was the apple of Nan Yifan's eyes. What could hurt him more than her death? This elder knew that Luo Yannan and Yu Xing had gone to the Peach Blossom Cove. Therefore he was particularly frightened at this moment. He wanted to ask for an explanation, but he didn't dare. You can leave first. After a while Nan Yifan finally spoke. His voice was low and hoarse. The elder outside the door moved his lips and the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger, but he didn't dare to say anything. Yes. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he heard Nan Yifan say, "Wait." Then he heard the door open. The elder hurriedly turned around and saw Nan Yifan open the door and walk out. Stay here. I'll go to the family. Digression. 6 o'clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1916. The elder was shocked when he heard this. Patriarch means, no. Nan Yifan nodded. But, it was already late at night. The elder didn't finish his sentence. Because Nan Yifan raised his head and glanced at him. It was only a day, but Nan Yifan looked like he had aged more than 10 years. Under the faint moonlight, the elder even saw that his hair had turned white. His face, which was always high-spirited, was now haggard. Although the light was dim, the elder still saw Nan Yifan's bloodshot eyes. The moment he met Nan Yifan's gaze, he was instantly speechless. He couldn't say the rest of the words. He didn't know how to describe this feeling. Desolation, fragility, regret, resentment. It was as if all the negative emotions had gathered together. A heavy and oppressive aura spread from Nan Yifan's body. It was so oppressive that she couldn't breathe. Immediately, Nan Yifan said. The elder's heart skipped a beat and he instinctively felt that something had happened. He had never seen the patriarch like this. Could it be that the eldest young master and the others? He quickly lowered his head and replied in a low voice. Yes. With me here, please rest assured, patriarch. Nan Yifan nodded and then walked past him. A biting cold killing intent was faintly discernible. The elder's heart skipped a beat. When he came back to his senses and wanted to turn around and say a few more words, he found that Nan Yifan's figure had already disappeared. The elder, who was left in place, frowned. His heart was beating fast as if it was being gripped tightly by something. A strong sense of uneasiness welled up in his heart. When Nan Yi died, although the patriarch was very sad, it wasn't to this extent. It went without saying what had happened. After a long time he finally sighed. I'm afraid the world of divine ruins will be in chaos again. Nan Yifan was very fast. It took him a night to come to Meihe County. This was the family Yi's territory. Unlike the mountainous terrain of the Nan family, Meihe County was a vast and boundless plain. On the green land, a wide and clear river meandered through. Plum blossoms meandered along the riverside. Behind the plum forest stood a grand and luxurious city. Above the city gate, there was a golden plaque with the words Meihe County. There were guards in martial attire standing guard at the city gate. When Nan Yifan arrived, the sky was just beginning to brighten. There was almost no one coming in and out of the city gate. Therefore, when he appeared, he immediately attracted the attention of the guards. Who are you? The guards immediately became alert and held their swords in front of them. Meihe County was Family Yi's territory. Normally, only Family Yi's people would enter and leave. It was indeed suspicious that someone would come over so early in the morning. Nan Yifan directly revealed his identity. Go inform your patriarch that Nan Yifan of the Nan clan has come to visit. Nan Yifan? Why was he here all of a sudden? At the Yi residence, the head of family Yi Wentao looked up from his book in surprise when he heard this. How many people did he bring? Patriarch Nan didn't bring anyone with him. He came alone. Moreover, he seemed to be in a hurry, as if he had something important to do. The guard who came to report asked respectfully, Patriarch, do you want to see him or not? Of course. Yi Wentao stood up, closed the book and put it aside. He was very tall and looked to be no more than 36 or 37 years old. His facial features were handsome and elegant. He was dressed in a stone-green robe which made him look like a refined scholar. Anyone who saw him would find it hard to imagine that he was the current head of family Yi. In the world of divine ruins, there were very few rumors about Yi Wentao. In everyone's imagination, Yi Wentao should be fierce and ruthless. It seemed that only in that way could he control the entire family Yi. But in reality he was very different from what most people imagined him to be. Patriarch Nan, please come to the living room. I'll come later. Yes. The guard received the order and quickly left. Yi Wentao looked at his back as he left in a hurry, and his eyebrows moved slightly. The Nan clan and family Yi didn't have much contact with each other. And he knew a little about Nan Yifan. This person was proud by nature. Now that he suddenly came in person, something must have happened. Yi Wentao's heart was pounding. He didn't know what had happened that could make Nan Yifan put aside his pride and come in person. He thought for a while and didn't have an answer. Finally, he decided to meet Nan Yifan first. You can cultivate here in peace. No one will disturb you. He suddenly turned around and said. Behind the 8 screens on the rosewood base, a figure was vaguely reflected. Yes. His voice was low and slightly hoarse, but it also contained a bit of laziness. Yi Wentao nodded. Only then did he walk out and personally lock the door. After telling the servants to guard the place well, he turned around and left. Not long after Nan Yifan was led into the living room, Yi Wentao came. Ha, brother Nan, what wind blew you here today? Yi Wentao walked in with an eager smile. Nan Yifan looked up. The two looked at each other for a moment, a silent confrontation. A trace of surprise flashed across Yi Wentao's eyes. In his impression, Nan Yifan was always high-spirited and proud. But this time he was visibly haggard and his hair was stained with white frost. What did he go through? Just as Yi Wentao was guessing in his heart, Nan Yifan had already spoken. I'm here because I have something important to discuss with Brother Yi. After that he paused for a moment. Yi Wentao quickly reacted, waved his hand and dismissed the servants. All of you leave first. Family head, the confidant accompanying him, was a little hesitant. Nan Yifan didn't look too good like this. If he went crazy and did something, leave. Yi Wentao's voice turned cold. This was family. Nan Yifan dared to come alone. Did he not even have the guts to talk to him alone? Wouldn't that be a joke? The people below all knew his temper, so they didn't dare to say more and hurriedly left. Before he left, he even closed the door carefully. No one dared to eavesdrop here. He walked over and sat opposite Nan Yifan. His expression had returned to its usual gentle and calm. Brother Nan, if you have something to say, just say it. Nan Yifan stared at him. I'm here this time to form an alliance with you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1917. Nan Yifan said word by word. Every word seemed to carry an indescribable heavy stench and resentment. Yi Wentao was slightly stunned, then smiled. Brother Nan, are you joking? After all, the relationship between family Yi and the Nan family had never been close. At this time, Nan Yifan suddenly came alone and asked for an alliance. How could Yi Wentao not be surprised? But Nan Yifan's expression didn't change. As long as Brother Yi is willing to agree, you can name any conditions. Yi Wentao's smile gradually disappeared. He looked at Nan Yifan and carefully observed his expression, pondering inwardly. This sentence from Nan Yifan's mouth was extremely rare. At the same time, it also showed Nan Yifan's determination this time. Did he really come to win over family Yi? But the Nan family and family Yi's status were equal. Why would he do this? After thinking about it, Yi Wentao decided to ask first. Brother Nan, don't worry. If you really encounter difficulties, family Yi will not stand by and do nothing. I just don't know, what is it that needs to make Brother Nan so worried? Nan Yifan paused. The Nan family wants to fight with Yuntian Tower. Yi Wentao's expression finally changed. Yuntian Tower? You want to go against the Holy Sun? Nan Yifan nodded. Yes. Yi Wentao frowned. Brother Nan, I'm afraid I can't agree to this. Was this Nan Yifan crazy? Why would he want to fight with Rongxiao? Nan Yifan wasn't surprised by Yi Wentao's answer. In fact, a day ago he wouldn't have thought that he would make such a decision. But things were unpredictable. At this point he had no way out. The moment Yu Xing's jade broke, he knew that he couldn't endure it anymore. He could not completely blame Yi's death on them, but Yu Xing, his years of hard work had all gone to waste. As I said, I will agree to any condition of Brother Yi. Nan Yi's tone was much heavier than before. Yi Wentao's frown deepened. Nan Yifan knew how dangerous it was to go against Rongxiu. Why did he have to do this? He was even willing to pay a huge price for it. Yi Wentao shook his head. Brother Nan, you know very well that this matter is not that simple. In the end, he didn't want to offend Rongxiu for the sake of the Nan family. Brother Nan, you should know how difficult it is to deal with that person. If he chose to go against Yuntian Tower, it would not end well for him. Why must Brother Nan do this? If there's a misunderstanding between you and Yuntian Tower, I can step forward and mediate. Perhaps. Since Nan Yifan had personally come looking for him, Rongxiu would definitely know about this matter. Then no matter what he said, it was impossible for him to walk out of this quagmire clean. Instead of being secretive and arousing suspicion for no reason, it was better to be honest with him. In this way he could also do the Nan family a favor. In Yi Wentao's opinion, this was the best choice. However, Nan Yifan interrupted him. There's no possibility of reconciliation between Yuntian Tower and me. Yi Wentao looked at him suspiciously. Brother Nan, you mean? Nan Yifan took a deep breath and looked straight at Yi Wentao. Yi and Yuxing were both killed by them. Yi Wentao was shocked at first, but then he immediately understood. No wonder. Those two children were Nan Yifan's lifeblood. Especially Nan Yuxing, who was basically confirmed to be the next patriarch of the Nan family. Because both of them were very outstanding, Nan Yifan had always been proud of himself as the patriarch. Now that both of them were dead, not only did Nan Yifan have no descendants, but his position as the patriarch would also be unstable in the future. Even Yi Wentao knew that there were many people in the Nan family who secretly coveted the position of the patriarch. Nan Yifan did this to avenge his children and to protect his position as the patriarch. These two things were the most important to him. No wonder he came today. In fact, what Yi Wentao didn't know was that there was a very important reason why Nan Yifan chose to do this. Even if he didn't do this, Rongxiu wouldn't let him go. With Rongxiu's intelligence, since he had already killed Nan Yuxing, he would definitely find out that Nan Yifan was behind this. How could he just let it go? After the matter at Peach Blossom Dock was over, he would definitely make a move. At that time, Nan Yifan and the others would be in a passive position. Instead of sitting and waiting for death, it was better to make a move first. There might even be a chance of survival. Nan Yifan really had no other choice. How could he not be in awe of Rongxiu? If it wasn't for the fact that he really had no other way out, he wouldn't have done this. After knowing that Nan Yuxing had died, he stood in the study for an entire day. He seemed to have done nothing, but in fact he had thought a lot. He regretted it. Even he didn't know why he tacitly allowed Nan Yuxing and the others to go to Peach Blossom Dock quietly at that time. It was as if he had made that decision by accident. Perhaps it was because he felt guilty towards Nan Yi and also resentful towards Rongxiu and Chu Liyue. He thought that they didn't bring many people with them and it was really the best time to make a move in a place like Peach Blossom Dock. What if he succeeded? It was this, what if, and all those thoughts that made Nan Yifan make this decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. At this point there was no use in regretting it. He could only fight back. Yi Wentao didn't know this. But in his opinion, the reasons that Nan Yifan said were enough to support him to make such a choice. He was silent for a long time, but he was still unwilling to agree. Brother Nan, others may not know, but you know. That person is really not easy to deal with. Perhaps this was Nan Yifan's only choice. But what did this have to do with his family Yi? If he got involved in this matter for no reason, not only would he not get any benefits, but he would also get himself into trouble. Yi Wentao never made a losing deal. Seeing that he was in such a difficult position, Nan Yifan sneered in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He suddenly said, Brother Yi, do you know that Rongxiu and Shangguan Yu went to the god-slaying tomb and took something from the Black Wall? Yi Wentao suddenly looked up. He restrained his expression, but Nan Yifan was also sharp-eyed. How could he not see the surging waves in his eyes? As for what it is, I think Brother Yi should know without me saying it, right? Nan Yifan suddenly laughed. The Holy Sun's princess is not a simple person. The heavenly square cauldron and the two Tian baby are both in her hands. In addition, she has an unknown black shield in her hand. Although it looks ordinary, it is not inferior to any venerable artifact. When Nan Yifan said this, he didn't notice that Yi Wentao quickly frowned when he heard about the black shield. It's strange. I heard that Shangguan Yu is a person outside the Divine Ruins world, but she seems to have a strong bloodline power. Brother Nan, have you seen her totem? Digression. 7:00 p.m. 5th update. Wow, mobile phone users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1918. Nan Yifan shook his head. No. There were a lot of rumors about Tu Luiwei in the Divine Ruins world. Especially after her wedding with Rong Xiu, the rumors became even more heated. At first, everyone only thought that she came from a humble background, but a series of things that happened later made everyone know that she actually had several backers behind her. Although Nan Yifan had seen Chu Luiwei before, he had never seen her totem. Brother Yi, why are you suddenly asking about this? Nan Yifan was a little puzzled. Yi Wentao smiled and lowered his eyes. Nothing, I just suddenly thought of this and felt a little curious. I heard that when she tested her bloodline at the Yuntian Tower, the result was the same as the chosen. If she was really born outside the Divine Ruins world, how could she have the bloodline power? One had to know that only the ancestors who had broken through the shackles and reached the peak strength would have the bloodline power later on. It was impossible for someone outside the Divine Ruins world to do so. Isn't Shangguan Jing her ancestor? As Nan Yifan spoke, he suddenly stopped. It was indeed not right. Although Shangguan Jing was a supreme god expert and used to be in the limelight, when he came to the Divine Ruins world he seemed to have already established the Tianling dynasty. Later on he encountered trouble in the Divine Ruins world, his soul scattered and he fell into a deep sleep for 1,000 years. It was not until Chu Liwei came here that he came back to life. No matter how he thought about it, the bloodline power in Chu Liu's body did not seem to be inherited from him. Nan Yifan frowned and glanced at Yi Wentao. Why, Brother Yi seems to be interested in this Shangguan Yu? Yi Wentao smiled. I'm just a little curious. Since Brother Nan doesn't know, then there's nothing to ask. He was always so stubborn that Nan Yifan gradually lost his patience. Brother Yi, let's put these things aside for now. I will only ask you one last time. Do you agree to my previous proposal? Yi Wentao fell into deep thought. The room was silent. Time slowly passed. Every minute and every second was torture for Nan Yifan. But he could only wait. After a while, Yi Wentao finally nodded. I promise you. However, I have a condition. Nan Yifan and Yi Wentao talked for a long time in the room. About an hour later, the door was opened again. Nan Yifan cupped his hands and took his leave. Brother Yi, please wait, I'll be going back now. Yi Wentao knew that it would be hard for him to stay here, so he didn't ask him to stay and just nodded. Brother Nan, be careful. Nan Yifan responded and turned to leave. His figure quickly disappeared into the distance. Yi Wentao didn't look away until his figure disappeared. The sound of footsteps could be heard. Yi Wentao's expression returned to normal as he calmly looked up. The person who came was his second brother Yi Wenzhua. Big brother, that person just now was Nan Yifan? In front of Yi Wentao, Yi Wenzhua's attitude was much more restrained. On the surface, Yi Wenzhua looked older than Yi Wentao, but in fact, Yi Wentao was 10 years older than him. It was just that Yi Wentao was extremely talented and his cultivation was very smooth, so he looked younger. He nodded. What is he doing here? Yi Wentao frowned. The Nan family had little contact with them. As the family head, Nan Yifan suddenly came in person. It was hard not to think too much. Yi Wentao smiled faintly. He has his reasons for coming. Yi Wentao felt a little uncomfortable. Big brother clearly didn't want to talk about it. This was nothing. After all, the two of them were not ordinary people. What they discussed together must be important, which couldn't be easily revealed. But he was Big Brother's younger brother. Was he not qualified to know? The reason why Yi Wentao was so concerned about this matter was that this was not the first time such a situation had happened. The head of the family Yi was Yi Wentao. Almost all the important matters were decided by him. Here he had absolute power. Yi Wentao had never coveted the position of the head of the family, but over the years, Big Brother often didn't tell him anything. In fact, there were many times when many elders knew about it, but he knew nothing about it. Yi Wentao always felt that he was marginalized in the family Yi. After a long time, how could there be no resentment and dissatisfaction? But other than that, Big Brother treated him well in other aspects. This made Yi Wentao feel very conflicted. And this time it was still the same. He endured it for a while and finally swallowed his anger and changed the topic. I'm here because I have good news to tell big brother. Zhou Xian has broken through. Yi Wentao raised his eyebrows, seeming a little surprised. So fast. Just now he had told him to cultivate well. In just a few hours he had broken through, as expected of you personally taught him. Yi Wentao praised with satisfaction. These words finally improved Yi Wentao's mood. Not at all. After he came back he has been cultivating with big brother. With big brother's guidance this child naturally broke through quickly. As he spoke he paused for a moment. Big brother, no matter what, half of family Yi's blood flows in Zhou Xian's body. You see, the position of the young master. From the beginning, this was what he had been thinking. Yi Wentao had no children. In the future he would definitely choose a successor from the younger generation. And Jun Jiuqing was the most suitable one. Yi Wentao put one hand behind his back. He didn't beat around the bush like before. Instead he seriously thought for a long time. You are right. It is indeed time to choose a young master. Inform everyone that the family meeting will be held tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yi Wentao was a little surprised, but the joy in his heart washed away these emotions. He immediately nodded, unable to hide the excitement in his eyes. Okay. I'll go now. Peach Blossom Dock U Mansion. Chu Liwei put down the teacup in his hand and looked at Rong Xiu in surprise. Two big families? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience came from Love Network. Chapter 1919. Rong Xiu nodded and said slowly. That's right. Most of the families in the world of divine ruins are divided into first, second and third class families, but there are two families that are not included in this. One is the Nan family and the other is family Yi. Chu Liwei was a little puzzled. Why are these two families so unique? Rong Xiu laughed. It's a long time ago. Do you remember that I mentioned to you that 10,000 years ago, there was an earth-shattering battle in the god-slaying mound, and countless experts died? Chu Liwei nodded. Of course she remembered. At that time the battle was fierce. I heard that many people almost fought their way out of the god-slaying mound, and there were countless casualties. Such a fierce battle caused the energy of heaven and earth to riot, and it was almost dark. It gradually threatened many ordinary cultivators outside the god-slaying mound. Chu Liwei pondered for a moment. Judging from the tombstones they had seen in the god-slaying mound, the battle at that time could have caused such a result. With so many experts gathered and fought, it was easy to imagine what a terrifying scene it would have been. Fortunately, someone came to stop them and set up a boundary outside the god-slaying mound. It was not until the battle ended that the boundary finally broke. But it also protected the people outside the god-slaying mound. Chu Liwei widened her eyes in surprise. What kind of person could do that? This not only required benevolence and righteousness, but also extraordinary strength. Rong Xiu paused for a moment and smiled. That person's identity is very mysterious and no one knows. Later when the battle ended that person disappeared. It is said that the ancestors of the Nan family and family Yi were followers of that person. Chu Liwei suddenly understood. Later the two of them did not pursue that person. Instead they each found a place in the world of divine ruins and established their own families and clans. Today the Nan family and family Yi. Rong Xiu poured a cup of tea. His slender fingers gently stroked the porcelain teacup. His voice was light and ethereal. 10,000 years have passed and these things have long been buried in the long passage of time. There are very few people who know about it. The Nan family and family Yi had always thought highly of themselves and rarely got involved in outside affairs. The only ones who know about them are those first-rate aristocratic families with quite a bit of inheritance. No wonder. After listening to Rong Xiu's explanation, Chu Liwei finally understood why she had never heard of the Nan family before. It wasn't hard to understand why Nan Yi and the others were so arrogant when they met them outside the god-slaying tomb. The Nan family and family Yi, it was an existence that transcended these aristocratic families. So, the Nan family and family Yi are the two most powerful families in the god-slaying mound? Why was Nan Yifan so afraid of you before? Chu Liwei asked tentatively. It wasn't the first time she had asked this question. Rong Xiu's answer was always very brief. He only said that he had something on Nan Yifan which made the other party quite afraid. But Chu Liwei felt that something was wrong. Nan Yifan's attitude didn't seem to be purely because he was threatened. Faintly there seemed to be some respect and fear in their eyes. Xiao glanced at her with a half-smile. Fear? He has already sent people here. What's there to fear? Chu Luiyue was speechless for a moment. It was really. Although Nan Yuxing had always said that he was here to avenge Nan Yi, how could he have mobilized so many elders without Nan Yifan's tacit consent? Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue changed the topic. By the way, I wonder how Luo Yan and the others are doing now. It had been 3 days since the day of the chaos in Peach Blossom Dock. In these 3 days, Chu Luiyue and Xiao had been staying at the Yu residence to deal with the aftermath. The terrain of the mountain range outside Peach Blossom Dock had almost completely changed, but fortunately there was abundant energy here. With the help of Sanson's small space, everything was quickly recovering. Although Peach Blossom Dock had also suffered a lot of damage, fortunately most of them had survived. As for Mojin sect, they had been completely annihilated in this chaotic battle. Even their previous residence had been razed to the ground by the angry crowd. On the other hand, the Yu residence had been very lively recently. Every day many people came to the gate. Some expressed their gratitude and some wanted to enter the Yu residence. In short, they all wanted to follow Chu Luiyue. After this incident, the survivors of Peach Blossom Dock were unprecedentedly united. They admired and respected Chu Luiyue very much and were willing to follow by her side. The reason why they were like this, other than owing Chu Luiyue their lives and admiring her talent and strength, there was another important reason. The enchantment of Peach Blossom Dock was covered with a layer of God-destroying tribulation energy. Now it was completely under the control of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue had become the owner of Peach Blossom Dock. The enchantment of Peach Blossom Dock was stable now, and the energy of heaven and earth was abundant. It was the best place to cultivate. Who would not want to stay here? Before Chu Luiyue came, she had been thinking of finding a place to build her own power. Was there any place more suitable than Peach Blossom Dock? Therefore she went with the flow and took over the entire Peach Blossom Dock. With the enchantment under her control, she naturally had the right to speak in Peach Blossom Dock. These few days she had already sent Sanson and a few others to deal with these matters. They screened the candidates and formed a team of guards. Those with suspicious identities would be locked up and dealt with. At this time, most of the people were loyal to the Yu residents. Even if there were a few suspicious people, they did not dare to act rashly. Sanson had stayed here for a long time and understood the situation in the city well. Therefore these matters were progressing very smoothly. With the help of Tsun Yi and the others, they were even more efficient. This was why Chu Luiyue had the time to sit here and drink tea with Xiao. She had asked this question because Luo Yan and the other 3 elders of the Nan family had also been locked up alone after that day. Yes, even with the drifting cloud diagram they had not been able to escape in the end. Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Yan Qing has already been interrogated for 3 days. We should have news soon. Chu Luiyue's brows twitched slightly. He was a little hesitant. But those 4 people are all gods after all. It won't be easy to get anything out of them. As soon as she finished speaking, familiar footsteps came from outside. Your Highness, Princess Consort. The person who came in was none other than Yan Qing. Chu Luiyue noticed that he had changed his clothes and had the unique refreshing scent of someone who had just taken a bath. He had specially tidied himself up before coming here. Even so, there was still a faint smell of blood on his body. It could be seen that the process of these 3 days of interrogation. Yan Qing bowed respectfully and said bluntly. One of them confessed. These words immediately interrupted Chu Luiyue's thoughts. She asked in surprise. Confessed? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1920. Yes. Yan Qing bowed her head slightly. Nan Hongyang admitted that they came here with the permission of the head of the Nan family, Nan Yifan. Chu Luiyue was in disbelief. This testimony was fatal for the Nan family. Did Yan Qing really pry open the mouth of the Nan family? She couldn't help but look Yan Qing up and down carefully again. His face was still as cold as ice and he was still as calm as ever. It was as if this matter was nothing to him, but that was Her Eminence. Chu Luiyue didn't think that Nan Hongyang would choose to betray the Nan family. Since Nan Yifan was behind this matter, the people he chose must be people he trusted. Then, since Nan Hongyang had spoken, he must have been forced into a corner. No matter what, that was Her Eminence. What method did Yan Qing use to actually be able to find out all these things? Besides this, did he say anything else? Rong Xiu didn't seem to be surprised and asked lightly. Yan Qing shook her head. No. He said that the main planners of this matter were Nan Yuxing and Luo Yan, and the rest of them just followed the order and came together. He didn't know the details. This was not impossible. It was a matter of great importance. The fewer people who knew, the better. Nan Yifan probably didn't expect that they would fail even after sending such a powerful force. More importantly, he didn't even have the time to escape. In the end, he was captured and interrogated under torture. Chu Luiyue touched her chin. If Nan Yifan had known that things would develop to this point, he probably wouldn't have made this decision. But there was no medicine for regret in the world. What about Luo Yan? Yan Qing paused. He refused to talk. He was a tough nut to crack. There was still some difference between him and Nan Hongyang. Otherwise he wouldn't have such a high status in the Nan family. Chu Luiyue had expected that he wouldn't talk. Instead, she was quite surprised when Yan Qing asked Nan Hongyang to admit it. She smiled and said, "It's fine. Since Nan Hongyang has admitted it, it doesn't matter whether he tells us or not." Rong Xiu knocked on the table. That may be the case, but his biological mother is more convincing. Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement. She pondered for a moment. "I'll ask him myself later." A trace of hesitation flashed across Yan Qing's face. She subconsciously looked at Rong Xiu. "Your Highness, that place is very dirty. No matter, I will accompany you." Rong Xiu didn't seem to care. Since she wanted to go, she must have her reasons. Chu Luiyue winked at Rong Xiu. Her man was indeed reliable. Rong Xiu suddenly asked, "Is there any movement from the Nan family?" Yan Qing immediately said, "Not yet." Their men had been on high alert, but until now the Nan family hadn't sent anyone over. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes. Nan Yifan should have known the moment Nan Yuxing died. Now several days had passed, but he still hadn't made any move. This wasn't normal. Chu Luiyue stood up. "In that case, why don't we ask Luo Yan directly now?" Yan Qing didn't stop her anymore. He took a step back. Rong Xiu suddenly sighed. Chu Luiyue looked at him in confusion. "What's wrong? Didn't he say that he would go with her?" Rong Xiu leaned back in the chair, holding his forehead with one hand and gently rubbing between his eyebrows with his slender fingers. His movements were lazy, but there was an indescribable nobility in his bones. The sunlight shone on him, making his white clothes look even whiter than snow. He looked at Chu Luiyue, and there seemed to be a warm color at the corners of his eyes and eyebrows. As newlyweds, your eyes are full of others, but there is no place for her husband. Digression, the Holy Sun felt bitter in his heart. Continue at 6 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1921. Chu Luiyue's ears flushed red. Even at this time he still had the leisure to do this. She subconsciously glanced at Yan Qing. Yan Qing looked down and pretended to be invisible. His Highness and the princess consort were newlyweds. The two of them hadn't been able to be alone for long before rushing here. And during this period of time, the two of them had been busy with many things. Perhaps they didn't even have a chance to talk properly together. It was normal for His Highness to be like this. Although he didn't understand love, he understood His Highness. Chu Luiyue also understood her man very well. So she could only sigh helplessly, walk over and take Rong Xiu's hand. "Husband, what are you talking about? Haven't I been accompanying you these past few days? This time it's your turn to go with me, okay?" She was deliberately teasing him, so she deliberately softened her voice. Her tone was rarely soft and coquettish. Every syllable lingered in his ears, like a feather gently sweeping across his heart. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a smile as he held her hand. Her hand was slender and soft. When she approached, the unique faint fragrance of her body drifted over, refreshing the heart. Rong Xiu looked at her bright and resplendent eyes with a smile. His heart moved. Wherever Madam wants to go, husband will naturally follow." As he spoke, he stood up and held her hand tightly. His fingertips gently rubbed against the back of her hand. His generous response made Chu Luiyue feel embarrassed. She coughed and gathered her thoughts. "Then let's go over now." Luo Yan and the others were locked up in the Yu Estate's dungeon. They all knew the place. The two of them walked out hand in hand. Yan Qing followed behind. The three of them walked in the direction of the dungeon in the backyard. As soon as they walked out of the courtyard, they bumped into little Hachi and Shifeng, who had just returned. Yanqing raised his eyes and looked over. He was instantly taken aback. The two of them looked as if they had just experienced a catastrophe. Their bodies were covered in dirt, and little Hachi's exquisite and gorgeous dress was stained with mud. He looked like he had just come out of a quagmire. Shifeng always liked to torment the vegetable garden, so it was often like this. However, little Hachi was famous for being clean and beautiful. Usually, if there were a few wrinkles in her skirt, she would feel uncomfortable for half a day. Now that she suddenly appeared in such an image, it was no wonder that even an iceberg like Yanqing was surprised. However, because Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue were in front of him, little Hachi and Shifeng didn't notice him at first. Seeing the two of them like this, Chu Luiyue was both surprised and distressed. Little Hachi, Shifeng, what are you? She knew that the two of them had gone out 2 days ago, but she didn't expect them to come back in such a sorry state. Master. When little Hachi saw Chu Luiyue, she immediately wanted to pounce on him, but before she moved, she remembered her appearance at this time. She sighed dejectedly, spread out her hands and acted coquettishly. Master, look, little Hachi is so pitiful. Although she said that she was pitiful, her beautiful eyes were still bright and sparkling. Even with such a dirty appearance, it couldn't hide her enchanting beauty. Chu Luiyue stepped forward and gently pinched her face. Little Hachi is the best. Little Hachi immediately narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. Although the dirt on her body was really driving her crazy. But to be able to hear this sentence, it was worth it. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Shifeng moved forward, also waiting for his master's praise with a look of expectation. Then he heard Chu Luiyue ask, Shifeng, how do you take care of your sister 8? Shifeng? Everyone clearly did the same thing, and he even did more than Sister 8. Why was the treatment completely different? Little Hachi glanced at him proudly. Shifeng was still too immature. It had been so many years, but he still didn't recognize his position? I was wrong. Shifeng also felt wronged. Chu Luiyue nodded in satisfaction. Your sister 8 usually can't stand these things. Look at how much she's been tormented. In the future, let her do less of those dirty and tiring jobs. Shifeng tried to restrain himself, but he couldn't help muttering in a low voice. But Sister 8 is the only one who knows how to take care of those medicinal herbs. How could he not do this kind of thing himself? Although he knew a lot of things, most of the time Sister 8 was more suitable. Little Hachi pursed her lips, and her eyes sparkled as if they could drip water. Just as she was hesitating whether to continue moving closer to her master, she suddenly heard Rong Xiao say, Yanqing, go over first and clean up over there. Upon hearing this name, little Hachi suddenly froze. She stiffly turned her neck and saw in despair that there was an ice cube standing behind Rong Xiao and Shifeng. The ice cube said, yes. After saying that, the ice cube seemed to sense little Hachi's gaze and looked over. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Little Hachi almost fainted. What was she like now? Ever since the two of them quarreled last time, they hadn't been in contact for a while. Little Hachi originally wanted to find an opportunity to get back at him. Who knew that the opportunity to embarrass herself would not come? Thinking of her disheveled appearance and messy appearance, and then look at him. Little Hachi was about to break down. She had never felt as embarrassed as she did at this moment. Master, I suddenly remembered that I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first. Little Hachi quickly said this and turned to leave. Her footsteps were hurried, and in the blink of an eye, she was gone. Hey! Little Hachi. Chu Luiyue originally wanted to say a few more words, but who knew that she would leave just like that? She made a grabbing motion in the air before withdrawing her hand. Why are you in such a hurry? Chu Luiyue muttered strangely. Wasn't she fine just now? Shifeng, has little Hachi been acting strangely in the past 2 days? Shifeng swore to the heavens. No, there really isn't. You also know that we are most concerned about Sister 8. If there's anything, how can we not know? After experiencing the beating in reality, Shifeng had already recognized everything. Chu Luiyue nodded. Little Hachi did not look like anything had happened. Then let her be for now. You've been tired for a long time. Go back and have a good rest. Chu Luiyue's comforting words immediately made Shifeng's eyes brim with tears of joy. Master still cares about me. He nodded vigorously. Don't worry, Master. Most of the people outside have been dealt with, and third brother has sent people to take over the rest. I believe that they will recover soon. Chu Liyue laughed. Okay, thank you for your hard work. I'll leave a mountain for you to use as a vegetable garden later. Shifeng was overjoyed. Thank you, master. With that said, Shifeng did not linger and soon left happily. Chu Liyue exhaled softly and looked at Yanqing, who had not left in time. Forget it, let's go over together. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1922. Yanqing responded, but she felt a little strange. In the beginning, His Highness had planned to go with them. He didn't know why, but he suddenly asked him to clean up the place first. If His Highness really had such a plan, he would have said it earlier and would not have suddenly brought it up halfway. Yanqing took a quick glance at His Highness. His Highness was still as handsome as ever. He was calm and collected, and there was even a faint smile on his face. Since you, doesn't mind, then listen to you, Yanqing was speechless. What was His Highness's faint for? However, His Highness's thoughts had always been hard to grasp. Yanqing only thought for a moment and then quickly withdrew her thoughts. He respectfully followed behind the two of them, but the scene just now suddenly flashed through his mind. He heard that Shifeng and little Hachi had gone out of the city to deal with those plants and medicinal herbs these few days. It seemed that it was indeed quite tiring. Previously, he had heard some news about the 13 Yu guards and knew that each of them specialized in different areas. Shifeng usually liked to grow vegetables. In fact, he was very familiar with the geography of the mountains and rivers. He also knew how to plan and deal with the messy mountain forest. Little Hachi, on the other hand, was fond of alchemy. However, she was different from the average celestial physician. She preferred to ponder over strange herbs and prescriptions. If the two of them worked together, they would be able to help Sansan solve a lot of problems. Regarding the rebuilding of the Peach Blossom Dock, His Highness had made it clear from the start that he did not need their help. Yanqing had been a little worried at first. However, after a few days, he was surprised to find that the 13 Yu guards were indeed able to handle these matters in an orderly manner. Could even be said that he was outstanding. Chu Liyue's subordinates seemed ordinary, but they were all very useful when they encountered a real problem. This made Yanqing have a whole new level of respect for Chu Liyue and the 13 Yu sect. At this moment, Chu Liyue suddenly turned around and glanced at Yanqing. Yanqing was quick-witted. She immediately noticed and looked up. Your Highness. Chu Liyue looked at him suspiciously as if he was thinking about something. Yanqing was confused. Chu Liyue knew little Hachi very well. She had always been very concerned about her image, but when it came to serious matters she didn't care about these things. But this time, at first she was very normal. Later it seemed that after she heard Rong Xiu call Yanqing, her attitude suddenly changed. Yanqing, our family's little Hachi has a bad temper, but she is very kind and is a good girl. If she offended you before, I'll apologize to you on her behalf. Chu Liyue knew that little Hachi had been looking for trouble with Yanqing some time ago. However, little Hachi always knew her limits, so she didn't bother too much. Moreover, there had been a lot of things going on during this period of time, so she had forgotten about it. Now that he saw their reactions, he suddenly remembered. Maybe they really had a misunderstanding? Yanqing immediately cupped his hands. Princess consort, you're exaggerating. Miss 8 is very good, it's all my fault. Offended her. Yanqing thought for a moment and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. It's all my fault for my inappropriate words and offending little Hachi. He still felt that it wasn't very honorable to say that he had misunderstood her. Therefore he only briefly mentioned it. Chu Liyue immediately felt relieved when she heard him say that. Yanqing's personality was always to say what he wanted to say. It seemed that it was really not a big deal. But, for some reason she still felt that it was a little strange. It's just ahead. Rong Xiu held her hand and reminded her. Chu Liyue came back to her senses, put away these messy thoughts and looked ahead. Let's go and take a look. The Yu Residence's dungeon had been there since the beginning. After Sansan bought this place, he renovated it, including the dungeon. According to him, everything he prepared for his master had to be the best. So, the dungeon's defensive strength was also far beyond ordinary people's imagination. Just the great Mystic King master-level mystic formations alone were set up as many as 6. Chu Liyue didn't ask Sansan how he did it. Peach Blossom Cove didn't lack all kinds of capable people. Sansan was able to find them and ask them to help. This was his ability. After imprisoning Luo Yen and the others here, Sanson sent more people to guard this place. Of course, the more important reason why Tu Luiyue was so assured was that she had already done something to these people when she locked them up. Although these 4 people were still in the god realm, they couldn't gather the origin power in their bodies. They were basically no different from cripples. The dungeon was very spacious and empty. Tu Luiyue and the others passed through layers of checkpoints and arrived at the deepest part of the dungeon. Along the way, clear footsteps echoed back and forth, making the entire dungeon seem even more empty and eerie. Before seeing anyone, Tu Luiyue could already smell a thick, sweet and fishy smell. After walking for a while, Yanqing stopped and took charge of guarding. Rongxiu and Tu Luiyue continued walking inside. The cells here were all made of fine iron and they were all connected to each other. However, the 4 people of the Nan family were locked in different places. Not only could they not see each other, they couldn't even hear each other's voices. This was to make it easier to break them down one by one. Finally, the 2 came to the door of a cell. Through the bars and barriers they could clearly see the scene inside. "He's Nan Hongyang," Rongxiu said. Tu Luiyue nodded. At this time Nan Hongyang was curled up on the ground, covered in blood. It was obvious that he had suffered a lot. Anyone who saw him would find it hard to believe that he was a god realm expert. Hearing the sound, Nan Hongyang moved and looked up. Digression, 7 o'clock. What's more embarrassing than seeing the person you like when you're in a mess? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1923. Under the dim candlelight, Tu Luiyue saw the bloodstains on his face and his horrified eyes. Nan Hongyang's eyes widened almost subconsciously and he curled up backward. Unfortunately, his arms and legs had been broken and he couldn't move at all. He could only wriggle weakly. It looked like he was in a sorry state. Tu Luiyue narrowed her eyes slightly. Before coming, she had thought that Yanqing must have used a lot of means to pry open Nan Hongyang's mouth. But when she saw it, she was still a little surprised. She didn't think the scene was bloody and cruel, but she was surprised that Yanqing could really leave so many wounds on Nan Hongyang's body. The physical strength of a venerable god expert was very strong. Even if Nan Hongyang couldn't use the force in his body now, he should be very resistant. To be able to beat him up like this, Yanqing's means could be seen. Tu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. She was indeed Rongxiu's confidant. To be able to reach her current position, Yanqing naturally had her own strengths and she was definitely not as simple as she looked. "Don't be nervous, we're not here for you this time." Tu Luiyue smiled faintly, her voice gentle. But at this time in Nan Hongyang's eyes she was no different from a demon. It's you? Only then did Nan Hongyang see clearly that it wasn't Yanqing who came, but Rongxiu and Tu Luiyue. But this didn't make him relax. Instead it made him more scared. He remembered clearly that the culprit who drugged him and made him unable to use the force in his body was this woman in front of him. He was extremely angry, but now he was meat on the chopping block, so he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. He knew that once he provoked these 2, his end would be 100 times more miserable than now. I've said all I can say. What else do you want to do?" Nan Hongyang's body tightened. His voice was hoarse as if it contained endless anger and resentment. Perhaps he was worried that others would hear him, but he lowered his voice when he spoke. Tu Luiyue sneered. "Don't worry, we don't want to do anything. We're just here to thank you." Her eyes were curved, her eyes were bright and the corners of her lips were raised. Her attitude was sincere. She was really here to thank him. With Nan Hongyang's testimony, they would be in an invincible position if they fell out with the Nan family in the future. Tu Luiyue thought highly of such a meritorious person. Her words were like a stab to Nan Hongyang's heart. His face instantly turned pale. "Since I've already said it, you can at least give me a quick death." Tu Luiyue raised his eyebrows slightly. "Tsk." She didn't know what Yanqing had done to push Nan Hongyang to this point. Only when one's life was worse than death would one beg for death in every way possible. Unfortunately, Tu Luiyue didn't plan to do that. She shook her head regretfully. "You haven't said those words in front of the head of the Nan family. How can you die? Don't worry, we'll send people to take good care of you in the coming days." Nan Hongyang trembled violently. His eyes were filled with endless fear. If that was really the case, then no. Tu Luiyue didn't give him a chance to argue. She waved her hand gently and turned to leave. Tu Luiyue and Rongxiu ignored Nan Hongyang's screaming behind them. and his voice soon disappeared. Chu Luiyue didn't look back. He walked all the way. She skipped past the other two gods and went directly to the innermost cell. Luo Yan was inside, sitting with his back to the door. His situation was a little different from Nan Hongyang's. There weren't too many messy bloodstains in his cell. And he didn't seem to have been tortured too much. He was sitting there perfectly fine. Chu Luiyue understood that it was useless to use all sorts of torture methods on such a person. He had to use other methods. Luo Yan. Chu Luiyue called out. Luo Yan didn't move at all. He turned a deaf ear to her. Chu Luiyue didn't mind. She continued, "You should have known that Nan Yi's death had nothing to do with us that day, right?" Luo Yan still didn't respond. Chu Luiyue laughed. "Actually, since you've killed Nan Yuxing with your own hands from a certain point of view, you've avenged the woman you like, haven't you?" Her words were simple, but it made Luo Yan turn around abruptly. His expression was very complicated. Shock, anger, shame, resentment. However, these emotions only flashed through his eyes for a moment. After a while he said coldly, "I don't know what you're talking about." Because he hadn't spoken for a few days, his voice was hoarse. Chu Luiyue looked at him. Her eyes were clear and sharp, like a sharp blade that tore through his last layer of disguise. "You should know very well how Nan Yuxing recovered his Yuan meridian in such a short period of time and even broke through to the supreme god level, right? Even I can sense that he has Nan Yi's aura on him." "Luo Yan, how could you not sense it?" Luo Yan didn't say anything, but his hands gradually clenched. Every word Chu Luiyue said was like a steel nail that pierced his heart accurately. Blood dripped. "During this period of time, we didn't even see the Nan family, let alone do anything to them. How did Nan Yi die? How did her outstanding Yuan meridian transfer to her biological brother's body?" "Luo Yan, I don't think you need me to tell you the truth, right?" Chu Luiyue bent down slightly, leaned forward and asked softly, "So this is how you like Nan Yi?" Luo Yan gritted his teeth and trembled slightly. There seemed to be a string in his mind that was stretched taut. Rong Xiu suddenly said, "Luo Yan, if Nan Yi's biological mother knows that you have such feelings for Nan Yi and let her die without knowing why, how do you think she will look at you when she meets you in the afterlife? Don't forget that you are her biological brother." This sentence finally made Luo Yan's expression change abruptly. He suddenly stood up, looked at Rong Xiu in shock and clenched his teeth. "What else do you know?" Digression. Today I saw a sentence. "In the mountains and rivers of a foreign land, the wind and the moon are the same. Everyone must work hard together." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from AI. Calm. Chapter 1924. Hearing Rong Xiu's words, Chu Luiyue also turned around in shock and glanced at him. What did he mean? Luo Yan was Nan Yi's biological mother's brother? Nan Yi and Nan Yuxing's mother was called Yi Dai, and she was also the matriarch of the Nan family. It was said that she passed away not long after giving birth to Nan Yi, so Nan Yifan doted on this daughter very much. As for Luo Yan, it had always been rumored that he was a distant relative of Yi Dai. Because he had no family and no one to rely on, and because of his outstanding talent, he was brought to the Nan family and became half a member of the Nan family. All these years, Luo Yan had indeed lived up to everyone's expectations. He had cultivated smoothly and broken through to become a god-level expert. Coupled with his relationship with Yi Dai, his status in the Nan family was even more honorable. This was also why he took special care of Nan Yuxing and Nan Yi. But Chu Luiyue never expected that Luo Yan was actually Yi Dai's biological brother. And judging from Luo Yan's reaction, it was clearly true. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but gasp when she understood the hurdle. If that was the case, then Luo Yan liked Nan Yi. No wonder he refused to admit it previously. If this matter was known by the world, then his and Nan Yi's reputation would be completely ruined. Even though Nan Yi was already dead, Luo Yan was still alive. Once such a stain was stained, it would be extremely difficult to wash it off. Chu Luiyue was still in shock while Luo Yan was about to break down in the cell. Rong Xiu's words directly snapped the last string in his mind. Immense shock and panic surged in his heart. He was indeed Yi Dai's biological brother. To be precise, he was her biological half-brother. He was the illegitimate son of Yi Dai's father. For so many years his identity had been concealed very well. Other than his father and Yi Dai, no one else knew, especially since the two of them had already been gone for more than 10 years. This secret had almost been completely sealed in the dust of time, never to see the light of day again. Yi Dai was very good to him, but unfortunately she passed away early. Later on he wanted to take good care of the two children, especially Nan Yi. She looked very similar to Yi Dai, so he naturally doted on her even more. But even he didn't expect that over time, this feeling would quietly change. He didn't dare to face it and had always buried it deeply. He had never thought about it too much. He couldn't figure out how Rong Xiu found out. All of Luo Yan's calmness and composure had completely vanished at this moment. He looked at Rong Xiu with a crazed expression as if he wanted to cut him into pieces. Unfortunately, this kind of attack had no effect on Rong Xiu. His expression was as usual. His handsome and enchanting face was half lit and half dark under the dim light of the lantern. In Luo Yan's eyes he was like a killing god from hell. If Nan Yifan knows about this, he shouldn't be able to tolerate you, right? As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows and laughed. Oh, not necessarily. After all, Nan Yi died in his hands. No matter what, he is the one who let Nan Yi down the most. What right does he have to criticize you? There was dead silence in the dark and cramped cell. Chu Luiyue could only hear rapid breathing. Luo Yan supported himself against the wall with one hand and covered his chest with the other. He bent down slightly and panted heavily. All kinds of unpleasant and suffocating smells poured into his nose, but he didn't feel anything. Rong Xiu's words were like a sharp sword, tearing apart the last layer of disguise he used to numb himself. Nan Yifan, it was really him. Yes, if it wasn't him, who else could it be? He was the biological father of these two people. When Nan Yuxing recovered, he had always been by his side. If he hadn't done it, he would have sensed that something was wrong long ago. But he didn't do anything. He pretended to be peaceful and crossed the sea. Immense pain surged and completely drowned Luo Yan like a wave. Chu Luiyue also frowned. She had previously guessed that it might be Nan Yifan who did it. But she wasn't sure. After all, that was his biological daughter, the pearl in his palm that he had doted on since she was young. She still clearly remembered the anger and heartache on Nan Yifan's face when he saw that Nan Yi was injured. That wasn't an act. It was also because of this that it was even more unbelievable that he did this. How could he be so ruthless? Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. Since Rong Xiu said so, it should be confirmed. In fact, it was very likely that he already knew who did it. Depriving a person of their yuan meridian and transferring it to another person's body was a very complicated and energy-consuming thing. Nan Yifan wasn't a celestial physician, so he definitely didn't do it himself. In fact, there weren't many people in the entire divine ruins who had this ability. After a long while, Luo Yan finally straightened up. Chu Luiyue noticed that his hand, which was supporting himself against the wall, was already badly mangled because of the force he exerted. What do you want to ask and what do you want me to do? Luo Yan asked slowly. His face was ashen as if all his energy had been sucked away in an instant. He was dispirited like a walking corpse. At this point he knew that there was nothing he could do. Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue looked at each other. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly, then took a step forward and asked, "Did Nan Yifan instruct you to assassinate us this time?" Luo Yan nodded. He hadn't said anything before because he still had a last glimmer of hope in his heart. But Rong Xiu's words completely shattered everything. The Nan family? Nan Yifan? They were all the culprits who harmed Nan Yi. Furthermore, the thoughts that he had hidden so tightly had already been discovered by others. What was the point of continuing to hide? He didn't want to live anymore, and those people should all be buried with him. A trace of madness gradually surged from Luo Yan's eyes. Nan Yifan shouldn't have the ability to do so himself. Do you know who he asked to do it? Chu Luiyue asked tentatively. Luo Yan closed his eyes. I don't know. Back then he had accompanied Nan Yi to the Yuntian Tower. After being rejected at the door, he had finally persuaded Nan Yi to go back. But the two of them were attacked on a mountain not far from the Yuntian Tower. He had also fallen into a coma at that time, and when he woke up again he was in the Nan family. It was also at that time that he heard that Nan Yi was dead. He didn't know what had happened in between. Chu Luiyue didn't ask further. It seemed that Luo Yan really didn't know. But since he was willing to admit that Nan Yifan had instructed them to do it this time, it was enough. It was obvious that Nan Yifan wouldn't tell anyone about such a confidential matter. Chu Luiyue stretched out his hand. That thing is useless in your hands now. Why don't you give it to me? Luo Yan was stunned at first, but then he understood what Chu Luiyue meant. He wanted the flowing cloud flying diagram. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1926. When the flowing cloud flying diagram was unfolded, it was about 30 feet long. It was blank and shrouded in a layer of faint red glow. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. There's a restriction on it. Rongxiu laughed. After all, it's one of the 10 great divine artifacts. The Nan family values it very much. It's normal that there's a restriction on it. Chu Luiwei nodded and carefully looked at the scroll in front of her. Apart from the layer of restriction on the flowing cloud flying diagram, she could not feel any energy fluctuations from it. Even if it was released, it would be difficult for anyone to guess that it was a divine artifact. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and sat up. Rongxiu was a little reluctant, but he still let go of her and helped her put on her coat. His slightly calloused fingers brushed past her delicate and smooth shoulder, leaving only a fragrant scent. Chu Luiwei put on her clothes and got off the bed. At the same time she waved her hand and the transparent heavenly square cauldron appeared in the room. He grabbed the flowing cloud flying diagram and threw it in. The transparent karmic fire suddenly burned. It instantly swallowed the red scroll. Rongxiu's posture was lazy. He leaned against the bed head and one of his long legs bent. The quilt slid down, revealing a large area of his marble-like chest. He tilted his head slightly and looked at it with interest. Chu Luiwei stood beside the heavenly square cauldron and stared at it. Her bright and resplendent eyes reflected the light of the flames, as dazzling as the galaxy. After a moment, a slight cracking sound was heard. Crack. Immediately after, the layer of light that enveloped the red scroll shattered like ice. Chu Luiwei raised her hand. The flowing cloud flying diagram flew out again and landed in her hand. Whoosh. She unfolded it again. This time, without the obstruction of that layer of restriction, she was finally able to see the true appearance of this thing clearly. She could not help but be shocked and widened her eyes slightly. With a white silk cloth as the base, countless strong and bright colors were spread out and intertwined with each other. It was like a painting, but it wasn't. It was as if someone had accidentally broken the paint board and spread all the colors together. At first glance it was messy, but there was an indescribable beauty to it. Chu Luiwei was a little stunned. Flowing cloud flying diagram. So that's how it is. She subconsciously reached out her hand. When her fingertips touched it, she realized that the pattern on it was uneven. No, this is a Xian formation. Chu Luiwei moved closer and took a closer look. Only then did he see that the seemingly chaotic colors on the surface were actually all small profound formations. The entire scroll was divided into countless tiny areas the size of a fingernail by transparent threads. Different Xian formations were drawn on each of these areas. The patterns were so fine and exquisite that it was almost impossible to distinguish them clearly. Even with Chu Luiwei's eyesight, he still couldn't see it clearly. After staring at the dazzling profound formation for a while, she suddenly had a thought. She extended a finger and pointed it at a small area within the formation. A trace of origin power was injected into it. Immediately after, a ray of light flew out from her fingertip. A huge profound formation quickly spread out in front of her. A strong pressure spread out from the profound formation. Chu Luiwei's breathing stopped, and she immediately raised her head to look at the profound formation. An indistinct roar came from it and lingered in his ears. She sucked in a breath of cold air in disbelief. 4 symbols formation. This was a profound formation that could only be constructed by a great Xian King master. She had seen the 4 symbols formation's profound formation diagram in Lingxiao College before, but her realm wasn't enough at that time, so she only took a few glances and put it aside. But at that time she remembered a part of the profound formation. So when she saw the profound formation in front of her, she recognized it at a glance. And this was just an inconspicuous little pattern on the flowing cloud flying diagram. Chu Luiwei looked at the flowing cloud flying diagram again. A bold conjecture suddenly appeared in her mind, causing her heart to beat faster. She held her breath and lightly pointed at another area. A slight sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Another ray of light spread out. It was also an extremely complicated profound formation. Revolving sky formation. Chu Luiwei muttered in shock. This profound formation's level was the same as the 4 symbols formation. She paused for a moment, pursed her lips and pointed at the third location. A brighter, profound formation that was bigger than the previous two appeared in front of her. And the pressure on it was obviously stronger than the four symbols formation and the revolving sky formation. This is... Chu Liwei was dazzled for a moment. Lightning pattern formation. A low and pleasant voice came from behind her. Chu Liwei turned around and glanced at Rong Xiu. This is a great grandmaster level profound formation? Rong Xiu smiled faintly and nodded. That's right. Chu Liwei didn't say anything for a while. Great grandmaster. For so many years she had only seen one great grandmaster level expert, and that was her master Nan Suhuai. It was also because of this identity that Nan Suhuai's position in the Divine Ruins world was extremely high. Xian masters were not common, and those of this level were even rarer. It was unknown how much strength and mental energy was needed to display a great grandmaster level profound formation. But just now she had only used her finger to lightly point and injected her force, and Chu Liwei could hear the sound of her heart beating violently. She once again looked at the gorgeous and intense colors. There were at least thousands of profound formations on it. And any one of them was a profound formation at the level of a great Xian King master. Needless to say, there were even higher level profound formations. Flowing cloud flying diagram. So this is the real flowing cloud flying diagram. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1927. Chu Liwei couldn't hide her shock. She had heard of the flowing cloud flying diagram before. Among the famous 10 great sacred artifacts, the flowing cloud flying diagram was actually a very inconspicuous one. Because it had almost no combat power, it was almost equivalent to a mobile teleportation array. Other than being able to send someone away at a critical moment and save a life, most of the time it had no use. Moreover, he might not be able to accomplish this every single time. Didn't Luo Yan and the others fail before? Because the Peach Blossom Cove's barrier collapsed, the flowing cloud flying diagram was disturbed by Chu Liu's side, and in the end they were intercepted again. From the looks of it, the flowing cloud flying diagram's name as one of the 10 great sacred artifacts was really a little exaggerated. The reason why Chu Liu took it from Luo Yan was because she had the principle of not letting any treasure go. She was also a little curious. If she had any expectations for this thing, she really didn't. Chu Liu already had the heavenly square sacred cauldron, and this was the most famous of the 10 great sacred artifacts. So when she looked at the others, they were actually just SOSO. But she never thought that, so there was actually such a secret hidden in the flowing cloud flying diagram. So many high-grade Xian formations arranged densely together, what did it mean? One had to know that to activate these Xian formations, one only needed to inject a strand of origin power. A great Xian King master working himself to death and painstakingly drawing a Xian formation might not even be as light as this flowing cloud flying diagram. This was simply a fundamental suppression. This was a true treasure. Even Chu Liu, who had seen countless treasures, was a little stunned at this moment. This flowing cloud flying diagram greatly exceeded her imagination. It was rare for Rong Xiu to see such a reaction from her. He admired it for a while and his heart was filled with love. He endured it again and again, and only then did he restrain himself from going over to pull her back. There's naturally a reason why the flowing cloud flying diagram can be listed as one of the 10 great sacred artifacts. A smile appeared on his lips, and it seemed to spread between his brows again, rubbing out some ambiguous spring. Chu Liu turned back to look at him. He knew. Rong Xiu laughed and shook his head. This is also my first time seeing the flowing cloud flying diagram. However, I did know that Nan Yifan valued this thing very much. Now I finally understand the reason. Chu Liu's hand gently brushed across the flowing clouds flying diagram. The 3 Xian formations quickly flew back. It didn't look any different from before. The waves in Chu Liu's heart could not calm down for a long time. She was a mystic cultivator. She knew all too well what kind of astonishing battle prowess such a treasure possessed. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he could fight against 10,000 alone. That's right. The Nan family is so arrogant. How could something that could catch their eye be an ordinary object? That's right. Only when so many Xian formations exist at the same time, would they be able to possess such a powerful strength that could shatter space at any time. Chu Liu gently exhaled. But if the flowing cloud flying diagram is so powerful, Why didn't Luo Yan and the others use it before? Rong Xiu paused slightly. The flowing clouds flying diagram belongs to the Nan family. If I'm not wrong, Nan Yifan should have given it to Nan Yuxing in the beginning to let him use it in case of an emergency. However, later on perhaps Luo Yan said something or did something, but the flowing cloud flying diagram ended up in his hands. It's a pity that he didn't know the true use of this flowing clouds flying diagram, so he wasted a chance to escape. If he could use these Xian formations at that time, even if the Peach Blossom Cove's barrier collapsed, they wouldn't be stopped by Chu Liyue's power and could leave smoothly. Chu Liyue nodded in agreement. When she got this thing, the restriction on it indeed didn't have Luo Yan's aura. This time the Nan family has suffered such heavy losses. Nan Yifan shouldn't have no reaction. Chu Liyue stared at the flowing clouds flying diagram for a while and finally put it away. I just don't know what they plan to do this time. Nan Yifan must have received the news long ago and knew what had happened here. But until now they hadn't done anything. This was really abnormal. Rong Xiu smiled. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. His tone was somewhat casual and his eyebrows were relaxed as if he didn't think this would pose any threat. Chu Liyue blinked. He was a little curious. What exactly did Rong Xiu have on Nan Yifan? By the way, why hasn't there been any news from the Black Demon Cave? Chu Liyue suddenly thought of something and asked curiously. That day she had clearly seen the totem of the Black Demon Cave appear between Mo Yun's eyebrows. The entire Black Demon Sword sect should be a force of the Black Demon Cave. For some reason they secretly sent some people to build a so-called Black Demon Sword sect in the Peach Blossom Cove. On the one hand they constantly absorbed all kinds of cultivation geniuses, and on the other hand, they coveted the treasures at the foot of the Peach Blossom Cove. The latter Chu Liyue could understand. What they wanted to fight for should be those thin blue crystals. It was just that they didn't expect that after all the work, it would be intercepted by her in the end. But Chu Liyue still didn't understand the former. Why did the Black Demon Cave secretly recruit so many cultivators? They kept the talented ones and killed the ordinary ones directly. What exactly do they want to do? Thinking of the various scenes she had seen before, Chu Liyue felt a chill run down her spine. In the past few years the Black Demon Cave seemed to be hiding from the world, but in fact all kinds of secret movements had not decreased at all. Rong Xiu suddenly said. Do you still remember the scene when you got that shield? Digression, 7 o'clock. From this month onwards, February will become a diligent February again. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1928. Remember. Chu Liyue put away the heavenly square cauldron and walked toward Rong Xiu. What's wrong? Rong Xiu said. Some of the people who fought with us back then were from the Black Demon Cave. Chu Liyue was stunned at first and a trace of surprise flashed across her eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I should have thought of it. At that time the Peach Blossom Cove was filled with all kinds of people and no one knew each other's identities. Moreover, there were even more people involved in the robbery of treasures, and it was impossible to investigate everyone's background. Chu Liyue didn't know that she had obtained a top-tier divine artifact, so she didn't pay much attention to it after the matter was over. Now that she thought about it, the people from the Black Demon Cave had been after the Black Shield from the beginning. Or perhaps the zither score in her body. Chu Liyue frowned slightly. Rong Xiu reached out to her, pulled her into his arms and kissed her forehead. Don't worry, no matter who comes I'm here. Chu Liyue looked up and glanced at him. You mean, the people from the Black Demon Cave and the Nan family will all come here? Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. She was still smart and she could always guess what he meant. It shouldn't be just them. Rong Xiu held her waist, intertwining his fingers with hers, and a dark look flashed across his eyes. The Peach Blossom Cove is a treasure trove, and many people have coveted it for so many years, but because of the unstable barrier, they haven't been able to make a move. Now that you've taken over the Peach Blossom Cove, many people will undoubtedly be jealous. Chu Liyue had already thought of this. These days she had asked Sun Yi and the others to hurry up with the various matters of the Peach Blossom Cove in preparation for the impending crisis. However, that might not be enough. The people from the Yuntian Tower will be here soon. The Peach Blossom Cove is yours and no one can take it from you. Rong Xiu's voice was gentle, but it carried a strong pressure that could not be disobeyed. There seemed to be waves surging in the depths of his eyes. Chu Liyue gently nodded. Don't worry, I can protect my own things. The news of Chu Liyue occupying the Peach Blossom Cove quickly spread throughout the Divine Ruins world. All the aristocratic families and clans were in an uproar, their hearts filled with shock. Peach Blossom Dock. That was a delicious cake that countless people in the Divine Ruins world were secretly eyeing. Abundant heaven and earth energy, an excellent geographical location, endless resources that had never been exploited. It was simply a new and ideal world. Even though countless people had returned in defeat over the years, there were still quite a few people who held on to that tiny bit of hope, hoping to find an opportunity to take over the Peach Blossom Cove for themselves. Most of those who had this idea were first-rate families and clans. Those who were weaker in terms of level and strength knew that they had no chance of success even though it was an extravagant wish. Countless people had thought of this question. Who would Peach Blossom Dock belong to in the end? Those first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world all had this kind of hope for themselves. But now, before anyone could react, there was news that the Peach Blossom Cove had been taken over? And that person was Chu Liyue. What was her identity? The princess consort of the Yuntian Tower's Saint Zhou Xian. The direct disciple of Lingxiao College's dean, Nansu Huai. The descendant of the weapon-refining venerable Shangguan Jing. Recently, this name had become famous throughout the entire Divine Ruins world. Not only because of these identities, but also because of the close relationship between her and the two ancient Divine Beast clans. Who didn't know that her contracted Divine Beast was the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan? Who didn't know that the clan leader of the Great Phoenix Dragon clan had specially gone to the Yuntian Tower to give her and Rong Xiu a congratulatory gift? Even so, it was still unbelievable that she had taken over the Peach Blossom Cove. Not to mention, it was rumored that she had relied on her own strength to reconstruct the barrier of the Peach Blossom Cove. It was simply a fantasy. So many first-rate families and clans had mobilized their entire clan to take over the Peach Blossom Cove, but they had all failed. How could such a young girl do it? No one was willing to believe it. However, the news that came later made them believe that the Peach Blossom Cove was now completely under Chu Liyue's control. I heard that her subordinates are now in charge of the entire Peach Blossom Cove. Now, the two entrances of the Peach Blossom Cove, one is connected to the Gate Realm and the other is facing the interior. Both entrances have been heavily guarded by her subordinates. Anyone who enters or exits will have to undergo strict scrutiny. Family. In front of the ancestral hall, a solemn family meeting was being held. All the important people of Family E had gathered here. Originally, their most important task today was to choose the Family Yi's young master. However, the sudden news from the Peach Blossom Cove had caused an uproar. They couldn't help but shift part of their attention to the Peach Blossom Cove. Although Family E rarely got involved in these matters in the world of God, it didn't mean that they didn't pay attention to it. Moreover, Family E had been harboring some thoughts about the Peach Blossom Cove all these years. Now, before they could make a move, someone else had beaten them to it. Who could accept it? An old man said as he stroked his beard and sighed. It's only been a few days. That's really fast. How could she take over the Peach Blossom Cove by herself? I think the power behind this matter is most likely from the Yuntian Tower. Another old man sneered coldly. The Yuntian Tower was actually referring to Rong Xiu. Many people nodded in agreement. Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu were husband and wife. How could Rong Xiu not be involved in this matter? I heard that the subordinates that Shangguan Yu brought with her were previously her subordinates outside the world of God. I don't think they are very capable and can't handle the matters in the Peach Blossom Cove well. The people behind this must be from the Yuntian Tower, right? Someone guessed. In fact, more than one person thought so. Almost everyone had the same thought. The old man who spoke first frowned and said hesitantly. But I received news that Shangguan Yu has a subordinate who seems to have been in the Peach Blossom Cove for a few years and is doing very well. I think he's called. He's quite famous. Didn't this prove that she and her subordinates were actually quite capable? However, most people didn't think much of this. Who knows what's going on? Anyway, I think that Shangguan Yu took over the Peach Blossom Cove with the help of a lot of people. That's how she became it. She didn't even think about how powerful her backer was. What a pity. It's such a good place. Jun Jiuqing sat in his seat and lowered his eyes slightly. No expression could be seen on his face. Just as everyone was lamenting, Yi Wentao walked out of the ancestral hall. Everyone quickly quieted down. Young Master Family E, I already have a suitable candidate in mind. Yi Wentao's gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on Jun Jiuqing. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1929. The crowd followed his gaze. The 9 ministers are extremely talented and capable. They are undoubtedly the best candidates for the position of young master. Yi Wentao's expression was as gentle as ever, but his tone was deep and powerful. Every single word was clearly transmitted to the ears of every single person present. The crowd was silent as they looked at each other with different expressions. In fact, they had already expected this outcome. The competition for the position of young master of the family E was very intense. However, Jun Jiuqing easily stood at the top after his appearance. Even those who disliked him had to admit that no one in the younger generation of the family E could compare to Jun Jiuqing in terms of talent and ability. After a while, an elder said hesitantly, "You're right. The 9 ministers are indeed very outstanding, but his surname is Jun after all." The ancestor of the Baiming dynasty had married a daughter of the family E 1,000 years ago. They had given birth to a child, but the power of the bloodline in the child's body was too thin. The family E felt embarrassed and ordered the child to be sent back to the Baiming dynasty. For so many years, no one in the imperial family of the Baiming dynasty had inherited the power of the bloodline. That was until Jun Jiuqing appeared. Not only did he have the power of the family Yi's bloodline, but it was also very pure. Moreover, he had Yi Wentao as his master. This made him even more confident in the family E. However, this was one thing. Becoming the young master was another. In fact, this was the biggest reason why most people objected to him becoming the young master. However, Yi Wentao did not seem to care. When he heard this, he only chuckled softly. However, the power of the family Yi's bloodline also flows in the 9 ministers' bodies, isn't it? Moreover, the power of his bloodline was very pure and of a very high level. It was just a surname. What was the big deal? The power of his bloodline determined that he was a member of the family E. After hearing Yi Wentao's words, the crowd did not say anything else. His intentions were very clear. He had already made up his mind to choose Jun Jiuqing as the young master. In family E, no one could go against Yi Wentao's wishes. All they could do was obey. Yi Wenzhua, who was sitting beside Jun Jiuqing, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Big Brother still made such a choice in the end. His heart was faintly excited, and he had to tightly grasp the armrest of the chair to barely suppress his excitement. He was Jun Jiuqing's master. In the future, when Jun Jiuqing became the young master of the family E, his status would definitely rise as well. Although he was Yi Wentao's younger brother, he rarely interfered with the clan's affairs. Most of the time he didn't have much say. Now that he had a relationship with Jun Jiuqing, naturally it was different. "Jiuqing, come here." Yi Wentao waved at Jun Jiuqing. Jun Jiuqing stood up and strode over with his long legs. A jade thumb ring appeared in Yi Wentao's hand. The jade thumb ring was light green and clear. Family Yi's totem was engraved on it. Seeing this item, many people were envious. This was the status symbol of the family Yi's young master. For so many years, family Yi hadn't chosen a young master. They didn't expect that when they finally chose one, it would be an outsider. Naturally, everyone's feelings were very complicated. The surroundings were silent. Yi Wentao handed the jade thumb ring to Jun Jiuqing. Jun Jiuqing's expression was slightly restrained. He took the ring and put it on his finger. At this moment, the totem on the jade thumb ring suddenly flashed brightly. A powerful aura suddenly descended upon the area. Almost at the same time, the same totem appeared between Jun Jiuqing's eyebrows. A majestic power surged out from the jade thumb ring and poured into his body. The aura around his body also grew stronger. After about a quarter of an hour, the fluctuations gradually subsided. Yi Wentao's face showed some satisfaction. "Jiuqing, you really didn't disappoint me." The jade thumb ring's reaction meant that it recognized Jun Jiuqing as the young master. In the future he would be family Yi's young master. Jun Jiuqing laughed. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his eyebrows carried a hint of devilishness. "Thank you for your favor, family head. You're outstanding enough." Yi Wentao patted his shoulder. His eyes were full of undisguised admiration. Seeing this, what else did everyone not understand? Yi Wentao was clearly on Jun Jiuqing's side. From now on, Jun Jiuqing's status in Family E and even in the entire world of God would be different. Actually, besides choosing a young master today, there's another matter that I want to discuss with everyone. Yi Wentao looked at everyone again. His smile faded a little and he looked a little more serious. Everyone realized that he was about to say something important. They all perked up and looked over. The atmosphere became a little cold. After several years of depletion, the energy of heaven and earth in Meihe County is no longer the same as before. For the sake of Family E, we need to find another place with abundant energy as soon as possible. Yi Wentao went straight to the point. Everyone present was stunned for a moment. In fact, they were well aware of this point. They just didn't say it out loud before. After all, such words were not pleasant to hear. If word got out, it would easily cause panic in the entire family. No one expected Yi Wentao to take the initiative and say it so bluntly. Yi Wentao looked around with a magnanimous expression. Everyone, there's no need to panic. All the aristocratic families in the world of God will face this problem. It's not just our family. This was the truth. The world of God was vast and had abundant energy of heaven and earth. But at the same time, it also contained countless dangers. If any faction wanted to truly develop, they needed to have a stable place to cultivate. As time passed, the energy of heaven and earth in the corresponding area would be depleted. Over time, it would naturally become less and less. When the density of origin power fell below a certain level, it was no longer suitable to stay. After all, this would affect the cultivation of everyone in the aristocratic families. This was extremely important to any faction. In fact, over the years, many aristocratic families in the world of God had already begun to look for a better place to settle down. Some succeeded, some failed. The reason why the Family E had such a big reaction was because the status of the Family E was higher than that of the first-rate aristocratic families. Whether it was the superior cultivation environment of Meihe County or other aspects, they could easily crush others in almost all aspects. They were used to being high and mighty. Now Yi Wentao suddenly announced that they were looking for another place. Of course, it was difficult for them to accept. But everyone, don't worry. Although the current Meihe County is slightly inferior to the original, it's still better than many of the first-rate aristocratic families. The reason why we're doing this now is just to be prepared. Yi Wentao's next sentence finally made everyone's expressions look better. He paused for a moment, then continued. Moreover, it's rare that a place more suitable for cultivation than Meihe County has appeared. Naturally, we can't miss it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1930. Many people looked at each other. Someone asked tentatively. Family head, are you talking about Peach Blossom Dock? Yi Wentao nodded. That's right. Peach Blossom Dock is rich in heaven and earth energy. Although people have been coming in and out of it over the years, due to the turbulence in the void and the instability of the barrier, the resources it contains have not been used up. Moreover, its location is very special and it is indeed a very suitable choice. Yi Wentao's words were very straightforward. He did not hide his determination to take over Peach Blossom Dock. Someone said hesitantly. But Peach Blossom Dock is now Shangguan Yu's territory. If we go there recklessly, I'm afraid. Yi Wentao smiled. She is the wife of Rong Xiu, the son of Yuntian Tower. What is she doing in Peach Blossom Dock? Many people nodded. What he said made sense. Moreover, the two of them had just gotten married. Chu Liuyue's actions inevitably made people think more. However, they could not rule out the possibility that this was Rong Xiu's intention. Was he not interested in Peach Blossom Dock at all? Everyone had heard that Peach Blossom Dock belonged to Chu Liyue, but perhaps the real master was Rong Xiu. Moreover, in the world of divine ruins, the strong are respected. Yi Wentao was still smiling, but there was a hint of arrogance in his eyes. Even if Peach Blossom Dock belonged to Shangguan Yu, she would be able to defend it. Jiuqing, what do you think? He turned his head and looked at Jun Jiuqing. Jun Jiuqing's eyes flashed. Family head, you are right. Yi Wentao nodded. In that case, everyone should go back and prepare. We will set off tomorrow. Family head Yi had made up his mind to attack Peach Blossom Dock. However, they were not the only ones who made the same choice. The Nan family. It was already night time, but the lights on the top of the mountain were still bright. In a solemn and spacious room, all the elders of the Nan family were gathered here. As the patriarch, Nan Yifan sat at the head of the table. The air seemed to have frozen and everyone was silent. After a long while, Nan Yifan finally said, "That's how it is. Yu Xing and the others had originally gone to Peach Blossom Dock to look for Yi's murderer, but they ended up finding Rong Xiu and Shangguan Yu. However, not long after they sent the news back, His voice was heavy and hoarse. His face was haggard, a face that no one had ever seen before. It could be seen how much of a blow this matter had dealt to him. The crowd grew even quieter. If all of this was true, didn't that mean that the ones who killed Nan Yuxing and the others were all Rong Xiu's group? Apart from Yuxing, more than half of the 8 elders who went with him were killed. If his guess was correct, there should only be Luo Yan and the other 3 left. Up until now there had been no news from them. I think the situation isn't good. The more Nan Yifan spoke, the uglier everyone's expression became. Most people didn't know that Nan Yuxing and the others had gone to Peach Blossom Dock. When they received the news, they heard that 5 elders had already been killed. Nan Yuxing, who was most likely to become the next patriarch, was also dead. Rong Xiu, Shangguan Yu, they've gone too far. An elder finally couldn't help but shout angrily. Patriarch, we must make them pay for this. Isn't it just a Yuntian tower? Do you think our Nan family is afraid of them? That's right. Since they're so presumptuous, don't blame us for being rude. Flatten Peach Blossom Dock. Digression. The list of Xuqing and Xiaoxiang's neighbors will be posted in the comment section tonight. Pay attention to it. Continue at 6 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1931. All kinds of voices sounded. It seemed that everyone was angry and resentful about this matter and couldn't wait to go to Peach Blossom Dock to take revenge. However, was that really the case? Nan Yifan lowered his eyes to hide the sneer in his eyes. He knew all too well what these people were like. On the surface, they seemed to be united against a common enemy, but in reality, some of them might be overjoyed. Nan Yi's death didn't affect them much. However, Nan Yuxing was also dead. This time, there was no longer a suitable candidate in Nan Yifan's line to become the successor of the Nan family. The Nan family seemed to be harmonious, but the competition between the lines was fierce. A few years ago, the situation was only stabilized because of Nan Yuxing's outstanding talent and Nan Yifan's strength. But it was different now. Nan Yuxing was dead and Nan Yifan was visibly haggard. The immense grief almost caused him to break down. He couldn't divert so much attention to care about other things. But he didn't want to care anymore. Too many things had happened during this period of time, and the successive blows almost broke him. Everyone only thought that he was grieving because of the loss of his 2 beloved children, but who knew the real torture in his heart? He had paid such a huge price and even personally sent Nan Yi to a dead end, dying without a complete corpse in exchange for Nan Yuxing's life. In the end, not long after, he died in Peach Blossom Dock. Nan Yifan knew that many of the people below had ulterior motives. But he couldn't be bothered. The only thing he wanted to do now was to take revenge. He must make Rong Xiu and Chu Liwei pay with their blood. Anyway, he had nothing to lose, so why should he be so afraid of them? He nodded. Then this time, the blood debt and reputation of the Nan family will depend on all of you. The people in the meeting quickly dispersed. Only Nan Yifan was left in the huge room. Nan Hetian walked over. Master, it's late. You haven't slept for a few days. You should go and rest first. He said worriedly. Previously, Nan Yifan rushed to Family E overnight and sent him to stay here. He originally thought that he would stay there for a few days, but in the end he returned very quickly. Calculating the time, Nan Yifan had only stayed in the Family E for a few hours. When he came back, he didn't even have time to catch his breath before he summoned everyone from his clan to discuss this matter. They decided to attack the Peach Blossom Dock. Even if he was made of iron, he wouldn't be able to withstand such continuous torment. Nan Yifan shook his head. I can't sleep. The moment he closed his eyes, his mind would be filled with images of Nan Yi and Nan Yuxing's face. These scenes kept flashing in his mind like sharp blades stabbing into his heart again and again, causing him to bleed profusely. How could he sleep? Nan Hetian sighed. He had followed Nan Yifan for many years and knew him the best. Although Nan Yifan didn't explicitly mention this matter to him, he could more or less guess some of it. Nan Hetian paused for a moment and comforted him. Don't worry, family head. Although that person is not to be trifled with, since Family E is willing to help us this time, our chances of winning aren't small. The corners of Nan Yifan's mouth suddenly twitched. His expression was a little stiff and sarcastic. Yes, he was not to be trifled with. The Nan family members either died or were injured this time. Several god venerables joined forces, but they were all wiped out. Until now, not a single person had escaped and no news had been sent back. He could imagine what kind of situation Luo Yan and the others were in now in the Peach Blossom dock. This was the warning Rong Xiu gave him. If it was in the past, he wouldn't be so stubborn as to go against Rong Xiu. But now he really had no other choice. At this point, even if we don't do anything, he won't let us go. Most people in the Nan family didn't know that Nan Yifan was actually very afraid of Rong Xiu. In their opinion, although Rong Xiu was somewhat famous, he was only the successor of Yuntian Tower. They had nothing to be afraid of from a first-class family. Nan Yifan deliberately didn't say so much. Because the more they knew, the more concerns they would have. Nan Hetian frowned even more. He was actually very worried in his heart. But just as Nan Yifan said, they had no way out now. I wonder how Luo Yan and the others are doing. Nan Yifan frowned. This was actually what he was quite worried about. If Luo Yan and the others betrayed them and said something they shouldn't, then it would be very disadvantageous for them. If the Nan family members knew the truth, they definitely wouldn't let him go. At that time he would be in an even more difficult situation. Not only would he not be able to take revenge, but he would also lose his life. In addition, he was also worried about the flowing cloud flying diagram. Nan Yuxing was dead. That thing had most likely fallen into the hands of Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue. Thinking of this, Nan Yifan felt even more uncomfortable. You can leave first. I want to be alone. He waved his hand. Nan Hetian opened his mouth but hesitated. Looking at Nan Yifan's tired and haggard face, he finally bowed. Yes. He took a few steps back and left quietly. Nan Yifan let out a long breath. Now he could only hope that everything would go smoothly. Peach Blossom Dock. Manor. Moonlight as cool as water flowed in through the window. Chu Luiyue was standing alone in the room. In front of her, a black shield floated quietly. After the previous baptism, the rust on it had completely peeled off, revealing its bright and new appearance. Complex and mysterious inscriptions were engraved on it, exuding a vast and distant ancient aura. It still had a dull and black color, but it looked deeper and heavier. This feeling was difficult to describe. But Chu Luiyue could indeed feel a huge difference. Those faint blue crystals, after fusing with it, quickly disappeared. At this time, except for the dense and complicated inscriptions, nothing else could be seen. Chu Luiyue stared at the inscriptions for a long time. The surroundings were silent, and she could clearly hear her own heartbeat. There seemed to be waves surging in the depths of her clear and bright eyes. After a long time, she stretched out her hand and slowly brushed it over the black shield. An indescribable throbbing came from it. "Celestial shield," she murmured in a low voice. As if it had some kind of reaction, the black shield in front of her, under the inscriptions, flashed with light again. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. That day, after the last piece of faint blue crystal was perfectly embedded on it, this name appeared in her mind. This thing had been with her for several years, and only then did she know its true name. She had read countless ancient books, but she had never heard of this name. But this was not what Chu Luiyue cared about the most. At this time, what made her feel complicated was the inscriptions on it. Because, when she saw the inscriptions completely, she realized that her previous notebook also used this language. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1932. After Chu Luiyue regained her identity, she had been carrying that notebook with her. Now it was lying in her interspatial ring. She didn't need to compare it to know that it was the same language. This made Chu Luiyue feel very complicated. Back then she had lost her memory and couldn't understand the contents of the notebook. However, when she recalled the divine realm at Lingxiao College and regained her memory, she realized that she still couldn't understand it. At that time she vaguely felt that something was wrong. But later various things came one after another and she gradually put this matter aside. Until now, when she saw the secret text on it, the puzzlement and doubts that had been buried in her heart surged again. This armillary shield was obviously a very ancient divine artifact. And the secret text on it must have been engraved on it a long time ago. Then, Why did she use the same words in her notebook? When she first came to the Divine Ruins world, she clearly didn't come into contact with such content. But it was indeed her handwriting on it. Chu Luiyue rubbed her temples with a headache. Previously she had asked Rongxiu, and Rongxiu also said that he didn't recognize the inscription on it. What was going on? Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but touch the space between her eyebrows. When the God-destroying tribulation descended, the armillary shield was completely awakened. At that time she clearly felt a burning sensation between her eyebrows. This wasn't the first time such a situation had happened. It had happened when she was in danger several times before. It was just that it wasn't as intense as this time. At that moment she almost thought that a flame was burning between her eyebrows. In fact, the force in her body seemed to be affected as if it was about to boil. But this feeling lasted for a very short time. And every time such a situation happened, the situation was usually very urgent. So she had never had the time to study this problem. She didn't know if there were any secrets hidden in it. Just as Chu Luiyue was deep in thought, a series of familiar footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. She came back to her senses, put away the shield and looked at the door. A tall figure walked in. It was Rongxiu. Seeing Chu Luiyue standing alone in the room, Rongxiu raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Waiting for me?" Chu Luiyue snorted. "Of course not." Rongxiu did not mind. If she was not waiting for him, could it be that she was waiting for someone else? He walked over and wrapped his long arms around Chu Luiyue's slender waist. He pulled her into his embrace and bent down to kiss her. Chu Luiyue tilted her head and dodged. She raised her head and looked at him with bright eyes. "Have you arranged everything in the Peach Blossom Dock City?" Rongxiu pinched her nose. "Of course. Are you still worried about what your husband is doing?" Chu Luiyue certainly wouldn't doubt Rongxiu's ability. Last night he said that the people from Yuntian Tower would arrive today. In the end they did. And there seemed to be quite a number of them. However, Chu Luiyue stayed in the Yu residence and did not go out to take a look. Everything was arranged by Rongxiu. She shook her head and thought for a while. "I'm just thinking. Peach Blossom Dock finally had a few days of peace. I think it's going to be chaotic again." During this period, the 13 Yu residents and those who had chosen to follow the Yu residents had been working overtime. However, the damage to Peach Blossom Dock was too severe. They could only recover part of it in a short period of time. It would take a lot of time and energy to rebuild Peach Blossom Dock. Unfortunately, those people did not intend to give them the chance. This trouble will come sooner or later. It's better to do it sooner. Rongxiu's thin lips curved slightly. A cold smile flashed across his eyes. Chu Luiyue nodded. "I know." She had taken over Peach Blossom Dock and many people would be jealous. Instead of waiting for them to secretly make a move, it was better to cut the Gordian knot now. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. The next day came quickly. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. As usual, she circulated the force in her body for a major cycle. Then she slowly opened her eyes. There seemed to be light flickering in her bright eyes. After obtaining a divine body, "I'm indeed different from before." Chu Luiyue clenched her fists and sighed emotionally. She had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian. Her cultivation speed was already faster than most cultivators. After cultivating a divine body, her cultivation had improved greatly. Moreover, after absorbing the energy of heaven and earth and converting it into her own force, it was purer than before. No wonder everyone wanted to cultivate a divine body. At that thought, Chu Luiyue's eyes narrowed slightly. It had been a long time since she had seen Dabeo and the rest. Dabeo had helped her in the dark during the calamity at Lingxiao College. However, he had left without seeing her. Now that she thought about it, it had been a long time. There was also Diwu Zhangzi and Lan Xiao, the two seniors. She would have to make time to return to the Red Moon Desert after everything here was over. She remembered that the two of them did not have a divine body yet. She wondered if she would be able to help them refine their divine bodies like she had helped Dabeo. Now that her strength had improved a lot, it shouldn't be difficult for her to help them. Suddenly she felt a faint wave of energy. Chu Luiyue suddenly looked up and looked outside the window. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. "Master, Your Highness, someone is here." It was Cin Yi's voice. The so-called someone is here. Needless to say, Chu Luiyue could guess who it was. She stood up and walked over to open the door. "Someone from the Nan family?" Cin Yi nodded and then continued. "Also, family." Chu Luiyue frowned and looked back at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu's expression was calm as if he was not surprised. Chu Luiyue held her breath. They came together? Digression. 7 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1933. Sun Yi's expression instantly became subtle. His long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly and he seemed to smile. There's only a quarter of an hour difference. Chu Luiyue instantly understood what he meant. She frowned and then sneered. So Family E also wants to get involved in this mess. Rong Xiu also walked over. These two families aren't close. In the past few years they haven't interacted much with each other. Chu Luiyue was more and more certain of her guess. It seemed that these two families had indeed joined forces. However, Family E didn't have any obvious conflicts of interest with them. They did this because the Nan family instigated them. It seems that Nan Yifan isn't completely unscrupulous. At least he managed to get Family E to come to help. In order to rope in this ally, he probably made a lot of sacrifices. Chu Luiyue felt that it was a little ridiculous. It was obvious that the Nan family was in the wrong and had offended them first. Now they actually had the nerve to come again. They even pulled in an ally. 24 people from the Nan family came. Including Nan Yifan, there are a total of 8 gods. There were 18 people from the Yi clan, but there were 10 from Her Eminence, more than half of them. Sun Yi's voice was as calm as ever. Right now they're all gathered outside the barrier, confronting our people and asking you and His Highness to come out. Chu Luiyue nodded. We'll go now. They were waiting for them. She wanted to see who dared to bully her. These two families had a total of 18 gods. It should be known that an ordinary first-rate aristocratic family would only have 5 or 6 god-revered experts. And they had sent so many of them to attack Peach Blossom Cove this time. It was obvious that their family's foundation was indeed very strong. However, this time it was still unknown who would have the last laugh. Outside Peach Blossom Cove's barrier, the Nan family and Family E stood on both sides. There was a distance between them. The relationship between the two families was indeed delicate, especially at this time when they were all at Peach Blossom Cove. Other than Nan Yifan and Yi Wentao, the others were completely unaware of the alliance. Therefore, when the two sides met, most people still maintained a high level of vigilance towards each other. Nan Yifan and Yi Wentao greeted each other politely and explained that their targets were Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu. Then they began to wait. The atmosphere was tense. At the city gate, the group of guards in charge of guarding the city were all on high alert as they stared at the people from the Nan family and Family E. Someone in the Family E crowd couldn't help but whisper. When I heard those rumors before, I didn't quite believe them. However, judging from the current situation, Peach Blossom Dock has most likely fallen into the hands of Shangguanyu and his men. In the past, Peach Blossom Dock had always been a place where people could enter and exit freely. Yes. Also, have you all noticed that the barrier seems a little different? Also, the guards in charge of guarding it seem to be very loyal and devoted. When has the Peach Blossom Dock ever seen such a scene? I reckon that the rumor is somewhat credible. I just don't know how they did it. Everyone was discussing in low voices. They didn't quite believe it before, but now that they saw it with their own eyes, they couldn't help but doubt it. These guards looked different from those who had undergone formal training. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that they were a loose army. However, the aura of these people didn't seem weak at all. More importantly, their expressions were surprisingly similar. Their eyes said, "If you dare to come in, we will dare to beat you to death." They are really guarding Peach Blossom Dock. Yi Wentao and Nan Yifan were watching from the side. They exchanged a glance without batting an eyelid. They could also see the vigilance in each other's eyes. Before they came, they all thought that Rong Xiu would directly send his men to attack. These were obviously not his soldiers. However, these people were surprisingly united. It was as if guarding Peach Blossom Dock was their greatest responsibility. Moreover, from their words, it was obvious that they respected Chu Luiyue very much. In the entire world of God, who didn't know that Peach Blossom Dock had all kinds of people? To be able to command all these people. The means behind this was really shocking and unsettling. Yi Wentao put his hands behind his back and faintly felt that things were different from what he had expected. If there were more people like this in Peach Blossom Dock City, then it wouldn't be so easy to take down Peach Blossom Dock. Nan Yifan didn't think too much. This time he came with the intention of cutting off all means of retreat. Therefore, even if Peach Blossom Dock was difficult to deal with, he would never turn back. There was no turning back for him. He looked up at the sky and twitched the corner of his mouth without a smile. We have been here for a long time. Why are you taking so long to report the news? Or are there people who are afraid and don't dare to come out? The Holy Son and Princess of Yuntian Tower are so cowardly? A guard stepped forward and said coldly. Watch your words. These two were not people they could offend. At the same time, the people behind him drew their swords and sabers. Nan Yifan couldn't help but frown. These people looked like people from all walks of life. Why did they seem to be so protective of Tu Liwei and Rongxiu? However, this thought just flashed through his mind. He reprimanded coldly. I was just telling the truth. Can't I do that? Rongxiu and Shangguan, you killed my son and the elders of the Nan family. Today my Nan clan will definitely settle this debt. All the guards looked at each other with a solemn expression. Nan Yuxing and the others had indeed died in their hands. It was reasonable that the Nan family would come to make them pay. After a while, one of the guards sneered. Didn't they ask for it? If they didn't force and chase after them, Master, you wouldn't have done anything to them. They only have themselves to blame. Nan Yifan, Yi Wentao and the others were stunned. Master, you? Did he mean Tu Liwei? Did he mean that they respected and admired Tu Liwei more than Rongxiu? At this moment, a clear and pleasant voice was heard. Honorable guests, please forgive me for not coming out to greet you. Everyone looked over at the same time. Two people were walking out of the city hand in hand. The person who spoke was Tu Liwei. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1934. Seeing the smile on Tu Liue's face, Nan Yifan was instantly enraged. His only son had died in the Peach Blossom Dock at the hands of these people. How could she still smile? What was the meaning of this? Contempt? Provocation? However, just at that moment, a gaze filled with coldness landed on his body, causing him to tremble with fear. Nan Yifan subconsciously looked at Rongxiu, who was standing aside, and couldn't help but shudder. A trace of fear grew from the bottom of his heart. Nan Yifan clenched his fists and forcibly dispelled these chaotic emotions. At this point he had no choice but to shed all pretenses of cordiality with Rongxiu. Rongxiu's eyes swept over Nan Yifan and Yi Wentao, and his thin lips curved slightly. Family Yi, family head Nan, long time no see. How have you been? Nan Yifan's heart was filled with hatred. So many members of the Nan family had died in their hands. Shouldn't they know best whether they were fine? How could they have the nerve to ask such a question? Yi Wentao put his hands behind his back and nodded slightly. His expression was gentle and polite. Greetings to the Holy Son. As he spoke, his eyes fell on Tu Liwei, sizing her up and scrutinizing her. He had heard of this woman's name countless times. But this was the first time he had seen her with his own eyes. She looked no more than 17 or 18 years old, with a slim figure and a beautiful face. In particular, her starry eyes had a calmness that didn't match her age. It was as if these things in front of her didn't affect her at all. Even if she knew what all this meant. Yi Wentao had a new level of respect for Tu Liwei. A woman who could attract Rongxiu's attention and insist on marrying was indeed extraordinary. In fact, Yi Wentao wasn't the only one. Family Yi and the people of the Nan family were now focused on Tu Liwei. They were actually filled with curiosity towards this woman who had risen to fame in the Divine Ruins world in such a short period of time. Of course, while they were looking at Tu Liwei was also looking at them. The Nan clan had 8 honorable gods and 16 high gods. Family Yi, 10 venerable gods, 8 high gods. Moreover, the strength of those high gods was not to be underestimated. It seemed that the two families had really put in a lot of effort to deal with her. The smile on Tu Liue's face grew even brighter. Nan Yifan couldn't bear to see Tu Liwei laugh. It was very dazzling. Amidst the strange silence, he was the first to sneer. What? You're finally willing to come out? I thought you were planning to hide in Peach Blossom Dock for the rest of your life. His voice was cold and his eyes were filled with undisguised hatred. Tu Liwei didn't seem to care as she smiled. She said with a smile, Patriarch Nan, why do you say that? Peach Blossom Dock is my territory. My husband and I have just been married. Isn't it normal for us to come and stay for a while to relax? Besides, we didn't do anything wrong. Why do you say that we're hiding? Nan Yifun's face turned red with anger and the veins on his forehead bulged. This Chu Liwei was always sharp-tongued. My son Nan Yuxing died in Peach Blossom Dock a few days ago. As the culprits, don't you feel guilty at all? Nan Yifun suddenly raised his hand, pointed at Chu Liwei and questioned sternly. Rong Xiu's face turned cold and he immediately took a step forward. A powerful aura suddenly descended upon them. At the same time, a fiery golden glow flashed across his eyes. Nan Yifun, if you don't want your hand anymore, just say it. His tone was low and his voice was cold as if it was mixed with ice shards. Nan Yifun's heart trembled and his fingers curled. However, he soon realized that he was too cowardly. For a moment, Nan Yifun was angry and annoyed. He had already planned to fight to the death, but when Rong Xiu spoke, he still subconsciously felt awe and fear. Nan Yifun was very embarrassed. Chu Liwei glanced at him from the corner of his eye and raised his eyebrows. Nan Yifun's reaction was a little ridiculous. If he had more confidence, he wouldn't be like this. She took Rong Xiu's hand and shook her head gently, indicating that he didn't need to be angry with this kind of person. It wasn't worth it. She looked at Nan Yifun and said frankly, Master Nan, it seems that there is some misunderstanding in this. Your son Nan Yuxing didn't die in our hands. The one who really killed him was none other than the elder of your Nan family, Luo Yan. Nan Yifun was so angry that he laughed. Tangguan Yu, do you know what kind of nonsense you're talking about? Luo Yan came with them this time to protect Nan Yuxing. How could he kill him? Even if you want to frame me, please don't find such a ridiculous reason. Chu Liwei knew that he wouldn't believe her, so she raised her eyebrows and curled her lips without a smile. Countless people in Peach Blossom Dock saw this with their own eyes and can testify. If you don't believe me, you can ask someone. You also said that this is very ridiculous. Don't I know that? If it's not true, why would I say that? Chu Liuyue's words made Nan Yifun waver for a moment. But this thought just flashed through his mind. He said angrily, Peach Blossom Dock is now under your control. Those people only listen to you. How can there be truth in their mouths? Chu Liwei followed his advice smoothly. You don't believe what we say or what outsiders say. Then, you should at least believe the words of your own elders, right? Nan Yifun's expression froze for a moment. What? It's literally what I said. When Luo Yan ended Nan Yuxing's life with his own hands, Nan Hongyang and the other elders were all watching. Chu Liwei curled her lips and said word by word, If you don't believe me, why don't you ask the elders to come over and confront me? Nan Yifun's breath stopped. Chu Liwei is serious. She really dares to confront me. Could it be that what she said was true? The person who killed Nan Yuxing was actually Luo Yan? But, what is going on? Nan Yifun's mind was a mess. No, it's impossible. When he sent people over this time, he specially selected the elders he trusted the most to ensure his safety. Luo Yan couldn't have killed Nan Yuxing, and the remaining elders couldn't have betrayed him. Nan Yifun clenched his fists and tried to convince himself. However, Chu Liuyue's words were like a thorn that pierced his heart. It made him extremely uncomfortable. Behind him, the people of the Nan family were also shocked and looked at each other. Their first reaction was, of course, disbelief. But Chu Liwei said with certainty and even said that they could confront him. Who knows if you guys use some despicable means to force them to lie. After struggling for a while, Nan Yifun finally thought of a rebuttal and shouted. They have already fallen into your hands. Aren't they at your mercy? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1935. Chu Liwei laughed when he heard that. I didn't expect Master Nan to look down on your family's god experts so much. Nan Yifun's face turned green and pale at the sarcastic remark. I don't think I need to remind Master Nan. Among the people who came before, there were 5 god experts among the remaining 8 elders except for Nan Yuxing. Chu Liwei shrugged. Even though there are only 4 of them left, they're still reputable god realm experts. Master Nan said that they are at my mercy. I don't know if you think too highly of me or look down on your family. Nan Yifun's chest heaved violently. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Tangguan Yu, don't go too far. I'm just telling the truth. How is that going too far? Chu Liwei blinked his eyes, looking puzzled. Didn't you say those words yourself, Patriarch Nan? Everyone in the Nan family, you should have heard it too, right? Everyone in the Nan family fell into silence. They were extremely embarrassed. They couldn't understand. They were the ones who came to suppress Chu Luiwei and the others. Why were they the ones being questioned in the end? Nan Yifan took a deep breath and finally regained his senses. No matter what, my son Nan Yuxing and the 4 elders of the Nan clan have all died here. Do you dare to say that these things have nothing to do with you? Today you must give the Nan family an explanation. Otherwise don't blame us for being rude. Chu Luiwei asked curiously. When has Master Nan ever been polite to me? In the past he was quite respectful and polite to Rong Xiu. But now he was no longer like that. Why did it sound like he was very nice to them in the past? Nan Yifan almost couldn't breathe. He finally realized that Chu Luiwei was indeed born with a sharp tongue. It wasn't enough to describe her as eloquent. He couldn't win against her in an argument. He would only make himself angry. By the way, since Patriarch Nan mentioned it, I'll just say it directly. In fact, even if you didn't come this time, we still plan to find an opportunity to pay you a visit. Chu Luiwei raised his chin. We also happen to be looking for the Nan family to ask for an explanation. Nan Yifan almost thought that he had misheard. He had never seen such an arrogant person. They were the ones who had come to the Peach Blossom Cove to demand an explanation. Not only had she refused to give them an explanation, she had even turned the tables on them. What did you say? Nan Yifan asked almost subconsciously. Chu Luiwei curled his lips, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. I say, Master Nan, you took advantage of the fact that we left the Yuntian Tower and only brought a few people to the Peach Blossom Dock to send people to kill us. After you failed, you encouraged the people of the Nan family to denounce us. How should we settle this debt? She deliberately slowed down her speech. Every word and sentence was crystal clear. Everyone's expression changed. Chu Luiwei's words contained too much information. Nan Yifan's heart seemed to have been hammered by something. He immediately shouted out in a conditioned reflex. You're talking nonsense. Whether I'm talking nonsense or Patriarch Nan has ulterior motives. Everyone is here today. Won't we find out after an investigation? Chu Luiwei rubbed her temples gently. There was a smile on her lips, but there was a hint of sarcasm and impatience on her face. She had to admit that Nan Yifan's series of actions really disgusted her. Not to mention what happened before, just the fact that he chose to kill Nan Yi in order to save Nan Yuxing was not something a normal person could do. Later he tacitly allowed Nan Yuxing to bring Luo Yan and the others to kill her and Rong Xiu to wash away the guilt in his heart. After failing, he pushed all the blame to others. Chu Luiwei was amazed. He actually had the cheek to bring so many people from the Nan family to the Peach Blossom Dock and say that he wanted to seek an explanation for the deaths of the Nan family elders for his son? She clapped her hands. Sun Yi, bring Luo Yan and the others here. Yes. Sun Yi bowed and turned to leave. Yi Wentao furrowed his brows and became vigilant. Sun Yi had been following behind Rong Xiu and Chu Luiwei previously. However, until he spoke, he was just standing there without any sense of presence, as if he was invisible. Even he didn't notice this man's existence just now. Is he Chu Luiwei's subordinate? Sensing this gaze, Chu Luiwei's eyes turned slightly. Yi Wentao had just retracted his gaze. Chu Luiwei sized him up with interest. A person like Nan Yifan was nothing to worry about. In comparison, it seemed that family Yi was more difficult to deal with. Yi Wentao looked gentle and harmless on the surface and was very elegant. However, how could someone who could reach his current position be a simple person? Not to mention he had chosen to join forces with the Nan family. Chu Luiwei's gaze then landed on the 2 people behind Yi Wentao and smiled playfully. There were 2 acquaintances on the family Yi's side. Yi Wentao and Jun Jiuqing. She had long known that Yi Wentao came from a good family, but she never knew that he was from the family Yi. Jun Jiuqing. From the looks of it, he could be considered a member of the family Yi now. Vice President, I haven't had the chance to properly greet you since we met last time. I didn't expect to see you here. Chu Luiwei said with a hint of mockery and sarcasm in her words. They didn't come with good intentions. Yi Wentao didn't care about his face at all and directly stood on the opposite side of them. Digression, 6 o'clock. It will take some time to write about the bridal chamber. Ahem, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1936. Yi Wenzhuo was unmoved. When he decided to come with the family Yi, he had already thought about what he would face later. Chu Luiwei was Nan Suwai's beloved disciple. If he made things difficult for her, he would undoubtedly offend Nan Suhuai. It was even possible that he would lose his position as the vice dean because of this. But so what? He felt aggrieved as the vice dean of Lingxiao College. Even if he lost it, there was nothing to feel sorry about. When Rong Xiu and Chu Luyue got married, Nan Suhuai's actions were almost equivalent to confirming that the next dean of the college would be Chu Luyue. What else did he have to worry about? Therefore, in the end, he still chose to come as a member of the family E. Indeed, I haven't seen you for a while. I didn't expect you to be so promising, Iwanzwa said sarcastically. From the looks of it, Peach Blossom Dock was really under the control of Chu Luyue, and Rong Xiu didn't interfere much. However, these things were complicated. No one could tell what was going on until the last moment. Chu Luyue nodded happily. Thank you for the compliment, Vice Dean. It seemed that she didn't hear the sarcasm in his words. Iwanzwa choked, then snorted and waved his sleeves fiercely. He wanted to see how long Chu Luyue could laugh. Jun Jiuqing, who was standing at the side, didn't show any expression from beginning to end. When he saw the two of them holding hands, a dim light flashed in his eyes. There seemed to be some kind of inexplicable tacit understanding between them. When they looked at each other, they could easily understand each other's thoughts. It was as if there was a layer of invisible boundary that surrounded the two of them. No one was allowed to enter. Now that a strong enemy was here and danger was in front of her, she still looked calm and composed. Her beautiful eyes and brows were relaxed. Every frown and smile seemed to have a unique charm. However, compared to before, she was more gentle and charming. Of course, it was only when she was looking at the person beside her that she would reveal her little girl demeanor. She was like a dusty pearl that had finally blossomed. Jun Jiuqing looked away and clenched his hands in his sleeves. He lowered his eyes slightly to hide the ripples in his eyes. Patriarch Yi, may I know why you have brought people here today? Rong Xiu's gaze lingered on Jun Jiuqing for a moment before he looked at Yi Wentao. Yi Wentao smiled. Don't misunderstand, Holy Son. We're here today to do business with you. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. I don't know what business I can do with family E. Yi Wentao's expression remained the same as he smiled faintly. To be honest, we have our eyes on this Peach Blossom Cove. Chu Luyue's brows twitched. As long as the saint is willing to give up the Peach Blossom Dock, you can name any conditions you want. His attitude was courteous and his expression was warm and gentle. However, his words almost made Chu Luyue laugh out of anger. So this family E was here for the Peach Blossom Cove. He sounded generous, but why didn't he ask if she was willing? Previously, she had chatted with Rong Xiu and said that after this, those who coveted the Peach Blossom Cove would take action. However, she did not expect that family E would be the first to make a move. Rong Xiu smiled faintly when he heard this. The Peach Blossom Cove belongs to you, or if you want it, you should go to her. Yi Wentao was stunned for a moment. He had always thought that most of the rumors were false. Chu Luyue should not have the ability to take over the Peach Blossom Cove. Rong Xiu must have taken action in the end. Therefore, he directly told Rong Xiu what he said just now. However, he did not expect Rong Xiu to be so straightforward. The Peach Blossom Cove belonged to Chu Luyue. The decision on how to deal with the Peach Blossom Cove was in Chu Luyue's hands. Yi Wentao's heart was beating like a drum. He had some understanding of Rong Xiu. If he was really the one who took over the Peach Blossom Cove, he would have rejected his suggestion directly. However, he actually changed the topic to Chu Luyue. Was he trying to praise Chu Luyue in front of everyone? Or was the Peach Blossom Cove really taken over by Chu Luyue? Yi Wentao was not sure. In comparison, he was more afraid of Rong Xiu. As for Chu Luyue, he did not think much of him. However, if the rumors were true and the Peach Blossom Cove was taken over by Chu Luyue alone, then he would have to reevaluate his judgment of her. However, Yi Wentao was not an ordinary person. After being rejected by Rong Xiu, he went along with the flow and looked at Chu Luyue with a smile. Sorry. What do you think, Your Highness? Impossible. Before Yi Wentao could finish his sentence, Chu Luyue cut him off. What kind of joke was this? She had spent so much time and effort to take over the Peach Blossom Cove. It was not easy to turn the Peach Blossom Cove into her territory. How could she give it up so easily? Yi Wentao paused for a moment. In fact, he had expected Chu Luyue's reaction and attitude. If it were anyone else, they would have rejected him as well. However, he was not in a hurry. Why are you in such a hurry to reject us, Your Highness? Perhaps, Our conditions can persuade you? Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Oh. Then I'd like to hear what Family E has in mind. The Peach Blossom Cove was vast and had abundant energy of heaven and earth. More importantly, it was directly connected to the Gate Realm and could freely enter and exit the realm of divine ruins. Such a treasured land was a priceless treasure. What else in the world could be compared to it? On the other side, the Nan family members had different reactions when they heard this. That was right. How could they forget that the Peach Blossom Cove was also a priceless treasure? They were only thinking about revenge and forgot about this important point. They could take the Peach Blossom Cove then. Some people were tempted. Some people started to look at Nan Yifan to see what he was thinking. However, at this moment, Nan Yifan's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Other than anger and resentment, nothing else could be seen. He did not seem to be interested in the Peach Blossom Cove. All his energy and attention was still focused on revenge. That was true. He was the one who lost his son and had no descendants. Naturally, he was the one who was upset. Although the others were angry, they could not compare to Nan Yifan. Some people were tempted, but they suppressed their thoughts unwillingly. Even if they could defeat Rong Xiao and Chu Luiyue, how could they compete with Family E? Originally, the two families were on par. However, after the previous setback, the Nan family probably could not compete with Family E. Just the goddess alone, they had invited 10 of them this time. They were determined to get the Peach Blossom Cove. Hearing Chu Luiyue's question, Yi Wentao seemed to smile. The lives of the Holy Sun, the princess, and the countless cultivators in the Peach Blossom Cove city. Is this enough to exchange for the Peach Blossom Cove? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1937. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the room suddenly froze. A gust of coldness gushed out and the temperature dropped to freezing point. The air seemed to have frozen and the surroundings were so silent that it was almost suffocating. What he meant was that if Chu Luiyue refused to give up the Peach Blossom Dock, the Family E would kill everyone in the Peach Blossom Dock. The smile on Chu Luiyue's face gradually disappeared. Her eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of frost and it was bone-chillingly cold. Family E, are you threatening me? Yi Wentao shook his head. No, I'm very sincere in talking about this business with Princess Yu. His tone was so sincere and so was his expression. Those who did not know him would really think that he was full of sincerity. Chu Luiyue sized him up and laughed instead of being angry. Seems that Family E has a lot of confidence in yourself. Yi Wentao nodded slightly and said tactfully and straightforwardly, I never do things that I am not sure of. The people he brought with him were the most powerful people in the Family E. Together with the Nan family, it would be a piece of cake for them to deal with the Peach Blossom Dock. He knew that Rong Xiao was powerful and he must have been prepared beforehand. But this time, since he had decided to make a move, he would not allow himself to fail. Otherwise, none of them would have a good ending. He looked steadily at Chu Luiyue. What do you think of my offer, princess? Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly and her eyes seemed to twinkle. Her red lips parted slightly and spat out a few words to express her most sincere intentions. I am looking at you farting. Dead silence. No one expected Chu Luiyue to throw out such a sentence. She was simply tearing off the other party's face and throwing it to the ground to trample on it. She did not give the other party any face at all. The Nan family was shocked. Chu Luiyue is so unreasonable. The Family E was also shocked. What are you talking about? Even Yi Wentao, who would remain calm even if MT Tai collapsed in front of him, after hearing this sentence, his handsome and elegant face twisted for a moment. He came from an extremely good background and his path had been smooth sailing. When had he ever been humiliated like this to his face? It was extremely unpleasant to hear. It was extremely humiliating. On the other hand, the guards of the Peach Blossom Dock who were standing at the side all revealed looks of admiration. Master Yu is indeed Master Yu. How domineering. This was the way to deal with such a shameless and high and mighty person. Yi Wentao took a deep breath and finally regained his composure. He suppressed his anger and looked at Rong Xiao. Saint, I'm here to discuss this business with sincerity. Isn't Princess Consort going overboard with her actions? Rong Xiao's thin lips curled into a smile. I'm sorry, has always been outspoken. There's nothing wrong with her except that she likes to speak the truth. Master Family E is magnanimous, so I'm sure you won't fuss over such a small matter. These words made Yi Wentao unable to say a single word. His face was a mix of red and white. How exciting! Chu Luiwei once again gave her man a thumbs up in her heart. Impressive. Truly impressive. What did it mean to win without shedding a drop of blood? This was what it meant. Every word was like a sharp knife, cutting Yi Wentao's pretentious manner into pieces. After losing face in front of so many people, it would be difficult for him to pick it up again. Yi Wentao held his breath and had just spat out 2 words when he was interrupted. Master, they're here. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Sun Yi had returned. Behind him were a few guards from the Yu residence, who were escorting Luo Yan and the other 3. Ever since Luo Yan gave his instructions, Chu Luiwei didn't make things difficult for them anymore. Instead, he let his subordinates take good care of them. This time they even changed into clean new clothes. From the outside, apart from their pale faces and dispirited spirits, they didn't seem to be any different from ordinary people. However, everyone present was quite strong and someone quickly saw the problem. Why are they so weak? And there doesn't seem to be any force fluctuations on their bodies. Someone in the Nan residence asked softly. It was easy to understand. It was most likely Chu Luiwei and the others who tortured them. However, it was really strange that they didn't have any force fluctuations on their bodies. Even if there was a barrier between them, they shouldn't be too far apart, so they should be able to sense it. Nan Yifan's heart sank and he immediately shouted. Shengguan Yu, what did you do to them? Chu Luiwei said unhurriedly. What's the hurry, Master Nan? I just gave them some medicine so that they can stay here quietly. However, aren't they still here? As she spoke, she walked to Luo Yan's side. Luo Yan, Master Nan said that we killed Nan Yuxing. Do you have anything to say about this? Everyone's eyes were focused on Luo Yan. He slowly raised his head. Nan Yifan and him looked at each other for a moment. That cold and gloomy gaze made Nan Yifan feel a strong sense of uneasiness. Luo Yan opened his mouth, his voice was hoarse. I killed Nan Yuxing. Nan Yifan clenched his fists. Luo Yan, are you being threatened by them? Don't worry, we're here today to seek justice for you. Just tell the truth. Luo Yan just looked at him, his eyes cold and strange. I did kill Nan Yuxing. Many people saw it at that time. Nan Yifan, shouldn't you be the clearest about why I killed him? Digression, 7 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1938. His voice was cold and mechanical. Only when one looked carefully and saw the hatred in his eyes would one understand that his words were indeed from the bottom of his heart. Nan Yifan was stunned. Everyone in the Nan family was also stunned. Luo Yan actually admitted that he was the one who killed Nan Yuxing? What else did he say? Nan Yifan knew best why he did it? Countless doubtful and suspicious gazes fell on Nan Yifan. And in Nan Yifan's heart, stormy waves were set off. Luo Yan's words. Could it be that he already knew? Huge worry and fear surged in his heart. He opened his mouth, but it was as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat. Chu Luiwei admired the changes in Nan Yifan's expression for a while before he said, Since everyone is here, it's better to lay things out on the table. Luo Yan, why don't you tell everyone in person why you came to Peach Blossom Dock this time? Nan Yifan's heart seemed to be clenched by something. Luo Yan, don't forget that you're from the Nan family. No matter how they coerce you, you can't betray the Nan family. He shouted sternly. Luo Yan seemed to have heard a joke as the corners of his mouth twitched. Nan Yifan, are you muddle-headed? My surname is Luo, not Nan. The corners of Nan Yifan's eyes twitched violently, and his entire body turned cold. Then he heard Luo Yan continue. Our purpose this time is very simple. To kill you. When we found out that you came to the Peach Blossom Dock without bringing anyone with you, we had this plan and came here directly. We originally wanted to get rid of you directly, but we didn't expect that we would be the ones who lost. Luo Yan's expression was indifferent, and his words were cold and clear. Everyone in the Nan family was already in an uproar. The version they heard was not like this. Who was telling the truth between Nan Yifan and Luo Yan? As for the reason why we want to kill you, it's naturally because of Yi. Not many people knew that Nan Yi had offended Rong Xiu and Chu Luiwei in the Divine Ruins world. However, the Nan family and Family Yi were very well informed. As long as they were willing, it would not be difficult for them to find out. Moreover, on the day of Rong Xiu's wedding, Nan Yi had openly gone to the Yuntian Tower. Although he had been rejected, he had done it too openly. It was hard not to know. And Nan Yi's sudden death some time ago had caused a lot of speculation. In the beginning, just like Nan Yuxing and the others, I thought Yi had died in your hands. However, he later found out that this was not the case. At the mention of Nan Yi, Luo Yan's expression finally changed. Heartache, pity, regret, resentment. He took a deep breath. The one who really killed Yi was none other than Nan Yifan. Nan Yifan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He almost reflexively shouted, "Luo Yan, do you know what you're saying?" His emotions were abnormally agitated. His face was flushed red, but his lips were pale and trembling violently. Everyone from the Nan family was stunned for a moment. They didn't believe it either. Anyone could have killed Nan Yi, but not Nan Yifan. He was Nan Yi's biological father. "Luo Yan, are you confused? Second Miss is the apple of the family head's eye. He dotes on her too much. Why would he harm her?" "That's right. Even if you betrayed the Nan family and stood on their side, you should at least say that there's a possibility, right? Luo Yan, why do you have to do this?" Everyone from the Nan family found Luo Yan's words absurd and laughable, and they all criticized him. However, Luo Yan only sneered and stared at Nan Yifan. "That's right. I also wanted to guess that it was someone else. Unfortunately, your family head didn't give me the chance. Nan Yifan, why don't you say it yourself whether it's true or not? Tell me, how did you kill Yi and forcefully take her Yuan Meridian in order to help your good son recover his Yuan Meridian?" Luo Yan's words were full of hatred and resentment. And with these words, all the noise finally disappeared. The scene fell into dead silence again. The expressions of the people from the Nan family became subtle. Others didn't know, but they knew. Some time ago, there was indeed a problem with Nan Yuxing's body. Nan Yifan only said that he was injured and needed some time to recuperate. But there were actually many people who were secretly suspicious. Because the courtyard was very strictly guarded, Nan Yifan only allowed his most trusted celestial physician and his subordinates to go there. No one else was allowed to enter. Later, Nan Yi died. Not long after that, Nan Yuxing's body recovered and he even broke through. At first they were only a little surprised, but they didn't think much of it. However, Luo Yan's words instantly tore apart that layer of concealment and revealed the truth before their eyes. After understanding the meaning behind this, the sound of people sucking in cold breaths rose and fell one after another. Didn't this mean that Nan Yi really died in Nan Yifan's hands? The family head dotes on Second Miss so much. How could it be? Someone muttered in disbelief. Someone else had a meaningful look on his face. No matter how good Second Miss is, how can she be more important than eldest young master? He's the most suitable heir to the family head position in this bloodline. All kinds of chaotic voices sounded. Everyone looked at Nan Yifan with eyes full of doubt. Nan Yifan didn't look back, but he also felt uneasy. His limbs seemed to be numb and he almost couldn't feel anything. Only layers of bone-chilling coldness surged out from the deepest part of his body and swallowed him. He wanted to speak and deny Luo Yan's words. But he only realized that his voice was trembling when he said it. Luo Yan hated him. He wanted to drag him into hell completely. He wanted him to never be able to make a comeback. That's right. He had always doted on Nan Yi. Now that he knew this, he naturally wouldn't let it go. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through Nan Yifan's mind, but it also seemed to be blank. A crisp applause sounded. Everyone came back to their senses and realized that the person who was clapping was Chu Liwe. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Master Nan, I really couldn't tell that you had such a temperament and means. You were clearly the one who harmed your own children, but now you have the cheek to bite back and even made so many people from the Nan family accompany you. I'm impressed, I'm really impressed. However, if Nan Yi and Nan Yuxing knew about this in the underworld, they would probably hate you for having a father like you, right?" Nan Yifan's chest shook and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1939. He was so agitated that he vomited blood because of Chu Liue's words. There was silence all around. The Nan family members were in disbelief. Even the family E members looked at Nan Yifan differently. Could it be that what Chu Liue said was true? Did Nan Yifan really do those things? If that was the case, then Nan Yifan's reputation would be ruined from now on. Not only would he lose his position as the head of the family, but he would also become a rat on the street, hated by everyone. Who would dare to work with someone who could do such a thing to his own child? Who would still treat him well? Finally, someone from the Nan family stood up and asked, "Head of the family, do you have anything to say?" Everyone's burning eyes fell on Nan Yifan. They needed an explanation. Nan Yifan was filled with hatred. When he learned that Luo Yan and the others were trapped, he felt a little uneasy, but he was not really worried that they would choose to betray him. These people were his confidants who had followed him for many years, and they were the people he trusted the most. Moreover, during this period he was immersed in grief and resentment most of the time, and his mind had been in a tense state. His mind was full of revenge and he had no extra energy and spirit to care about other things. Unexpectedly, Luo Yan chose to betray him right in front of him. In front of so many people he revealed everything. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in Nan Yifan's chest, and it was so hot that his eyes were dyed with a trace of scarlet. He slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked back. His cold and fierce eyes swept across the Nan family members like a sharp blade, and stopped for a while on the person who spoke. That person's heart skipped a beat and he subconsciously took half a step back. Nan Yifan's eyes were too scary. "You are all important people in the Nan family. Do you need me to teach you who to believe and who not to believe?" Nan Yifan clenched his fists, and every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. He suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Luo Yan and the others. "These people have been trapped in Peach Blossom Dock for several days. Who knew what had happened during this period of time? You don't believe me, but you believe them?" A series of rhetorical questions shook the hearts of the Nan family members. Although what Luo Yan said seemed to be true, Nan Yifan's words were not without reason. Who knew if someone had done something behind the scenes? Nan Yuxing was already dead. Nan Yi was also dead. As for what the truth was, there were many different opinions and it was impossible to investigate thoroughly. They were also hesitant about who they should believe. Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows. Of course Nan Yifan wouldn't admit it. Once these things were proven to be true, he would be completely destroyed. Therefore, no matter what method he used, he would choose to quibble and push the blame to others. Nan Yifan continued. "If you still consider yourselves members of the Nan family, then today, follow me." Whoosh. Suddenly, a silver spear appeared in his hand. The spearhead was incomparably sharp, and the patterns on the body of the spear intertwined with each other. "I'd like to see how long you can defend yourselves." Before he finished speaking, his feet moved and he charged straight for Chu Luiwei. Silver blue lightning swam under his feet, making crackling sounds. He was a god and his strength was already strong. Now that he used his movement technique, his speed was naturally even faster. In almost the blink of an eye, he was already in front of the barrier. Soul-devouring silver dragon's spear. Nan Yifan's aura surged and a powerful pressure suddenly descended. A large number of barbs suddenly appeared on the silver spear. From afar it looked like a piece of scale armor. And the scale armor was suffused with a purple-red light, cold and strange. It was obviously dipped in poison. In the blink of an eye, the spear had arrived. Everyone's hearts tightened. They didn't expect Nan Yifan to suddenly attack. Just as they were thinking about whether Chu Luiwei could withstand this attack, they were surprised to find that Chu Luiwei didn't move at all. She just stood there, her shoulders and back straight like a pine tree. A gentle breeze blew and her skirt fluttered. Her long hair fluttered gently and she raised her head slightly. She just stood there quietly, her expression calm and composed. It was as if she didn't care about Nan Yifan's attack at all. It wasn't just them. Nan Yifan also frowned because of her reaction. It was too strange. The distance between the two of them wasn't far and he was already close to the barrier. Could it be that she was scared silly? Nan Yifan thought in his heart. But when he met Chu Luiwei's eyes, he realized that he was wrong. That pair of bright starry eyes was like a deep and calm pool, as if no matter what happened, it wouldn't cause the slightest ripple. Even the corners of her lips were slightly raised as if she was smiling. Smiling? What was she smiling about? Nan Yifan couldn't understand. Chu Luiwei seemed to be hiding countless secrets that couldn't be understood no matter how hard he tried. Seeing him attack, she didn't seem surprised at all and even looked like she was waiting to see a joke. Yes, that was the feeling. Nan Yifan's heart instantly burned with anger. Chu Liuyue's appearance and attitude, wasn't she waiting to see him make a fool of himself? But what right did she have to do that? He knew that Chu Liuyue's strength was tyrannical, far surpassing that of ordinary high gods. But she was still a high god after all. He had broken through to high god several years ago. Could it be that he couldn't even take her down? Previously in the god-slaying mound he was afraid of Rongxiu, but now he had nothing to be afraid of. So he didn't hesitate at all for this attack. But at this moment, a tyrannical and flexible force suddenly stopped Nan Yifan. Nan Yifan was stunned. Only then did he realize that what stopped him was none other than the Peach Blossom Cove's barrier. The barrier that used to be fragile and chaotic and could be entered and exited at will, now seemed to have become an iron wall. He couldn't advance even half an inch. Nan Yifan's fatal attack was fiercely stabbed out, but it was silently stopped by the barrier. The two forces began to quietly and fiercely fight each other. Because of the energy fluctuations, circles of ripples seemed to have appeared on the barrier. Under the sunlight, it flickered with fine and dazzling lights, bright and beautiful. Nan Yifan was stunned. His soul-devouring silver dragon spear was a supreme treasure. It was almost indestructible. Yet now it was easily stopped by a spirit formation. Everyone, if you want to take my life, you must first have the ability to break into the Peach Blossom Cove, right? Chu Liue spoke slowly with a smile on her face, but her eyes were cold and fierce. Her eyes slowly and firmly swept across the crowd. I know that in the world of divine ruins, there are many people who covet the Peach Blossom Cove. So today I'll be frank with you. The Peach Blossom Cove is here. Whoever wants to take it, feel free to come. Whoever can take half an inch of the Peach Blossom Cove's territory from my hands, I will admit that he is capable. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1940. Her clear voice spread far and wide, landing clearly in everyone's ears. Many people were shocked. Chu Liue was openly declaring war. Moreover, she was challenging all the aristocratic families in the entire Divine Ruins world. Did she know what she was saying? After all, Peach Blossom Dock had just been taken over by her. Even if it had excellent conditions in all aspects, it was impossible to prepare everything in such a short time. There were many people in Peach Blossom Dock, but they were all mixed up and had their own camps. Even if Chu Liue had become the master of Peach Blossom Dock, how could she build up a powerful force that belonged to her in just a few days? Compared to the other aristocratic families that had been passed down for thousands of years, her force was simply too weak to withstand a single blow. She still dared to be so arrogant? They soon understood why Chu Liue had such courage. Because in the next moment she raised her hand. The girl's hand was slender and fair, soft and boneless. Did not look threatening at all. Then she waved her hand gently. Just a little. Whoosh! The enchantment of Peach Blossom Dock, which was faintly glowing, started to fluctuate violently in an instant. The sound of surging tides came from within. From this sound, it was not difficult to guess what kind of terrifying energy was contained in it. Nan Yifan's expression changed slightly. He had a bad feeling. His sixth sense, which had been honed by years of battle experience, told him that he needed to retreat immediately. But he hesitated for a moment. In front of so many people, wouldn't it be too embarrassing to take the initiative to retreat right after making a move? But it was this moment of hesitation. Boom! A terrifying surge of energy surged forth. A new round of even crazier strangulation began. Before Nan Yifan could react, he felt something tighten around his hand. He immediately looked over and realized that a translucent energy with a faint, gorgeous light had tightly bound his soul-devouring silver dragon spear. Nan Yifan knew that something was wrong and wanted to pull it back immediately. But he realized that he could not pull it back at all. Nan Yifan panicked. There was something wrong with this enchantment. However, just as he was filled with shock and suspicion, crack, the sound of something breaking could be heard. His heart shuddered as well. In the next moment he saw a sharp barbed scale on the body of the spear shatter. Obviously, it had been forcefully crushed by the power of the barrier. Nan Yifan's heart was instantly filled with shock. The power of this barrier far exceeded his expectations. He finally realized that something was wrong. Seeing that the translucent power was still spreading along the body of the spear, heading straight for his face, Nan Yifan immediately let go of his hand, moved his feet and quickly retreated. Crack. Almost as soon as he left, the sound of shattering rang out one after another. Inside and outside the barrier, countless pairs of eyes saw the shocking scene. Just like that, the soul-devouring silver dragon spear, which could be considered a top-notch divine artifact, was slowly being crushed by the Peach Blossom Cove's barrier. As the ripples on the barrier surged, the silver spear broke inch by inch and was finally annihilated into ashes. If Nan Yifan had been a step slower, he would have been in danger. Peach Blossom Doc's enchantment. How could it be so powerful? Someone in the crowd murmured in shock. They did not know that the Peach Blossom Dock had been rebuilt after its destruction. Now, the enchantment was covered with the power of the god-destroying tribulation, so it was naturally not comparable to an ordinary enchantment. Swish. Chu Luiwei raised his sword with one hand. He pointed to the front. Everyone please. Digression. Beginning of spring, I hope everything will get better as soon as possible. Mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1941. The sharp edge of the sword flickered with a cold light under the sunlight. A strong fighting spirit erupted from Chu Liuyue's body. Although there was still a barrier between them, Family E and the Nan family members who were standing outside couldn't help but be secretly shocked. Was this aura really something that a high god could possess? Nan Yifan took a few steps back and barely managed to stabilize his body. Although he dodged in time and wasn't injured, it was obvious that he had lost the confrontation just now. Moreover, it was in front of so many people. A high god powerhouse was actually easily stopped by a high god and even had his weapon taken away. It was simply a great humiliation. Nan Yifan stood there feeling like he was in an extremely sorry state. He had never suffered such a loss in the hands of anyone whose cultivation was lower than his. He was shocked and angry, wishing that he could immediately rush over and kill Tu Liwei. However, Nan Yifan was the head of the Nan family after all. He had been in a high position for many years. If he really didn't have a brain, he would have been pulled down long ago. How could he have come to this day? He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Previously, he had been stimulated by the deaths of Nan Yi and Nan Yuxing, and his emotions had been very unstable. Coupled with his lack of understanding of Chu Liuyue's strength, it led him to do so many stupid things under impulse. But now, Chu Liuyue had directly crushed the soul-devouring silver dragon spear and blocked his attack with little effort, which finally woke him up. It was obviously impossible for this to go on. Chu Liuyue's fighting strength was obviously far higher than he had expected. In other words, if he wanted to take down Peach Blossom Dock, he would have to pay a higher price. Nan Yifan's mind raced as he slowly exhaled. It didn't matter. The Nan family had sent 8 high gods this time, plus the 10 from Family E. Their fighting strength would be extremely strong. Chu Liwei could stop him alone, but could he stop all of them? Since you have said so, then don't blame us for being impolite. After Nan Yifan finished speaking, he crossed his hands in front of him. Vigorous origin power gushed out of his body in an unending stream. A dazzling purple light quickly covered his entire body. Purple cloud armor. Soon his entire body was covered by the purple scale armor. Chu Liuyue narrowed his eyes slightly. This aura was strangely familiar. Then Nan Yifan moved his feet slightly, clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out fiercely. Purple cloud fist. Break. Last time he had used 70% of his strength. This time he didn't hesitate to use his full strength. The fist wrapped in the purple cloud armor pierced through the air. The void trembled and collapsed one after another. A black spatial crack rapidly spread out. However, in the eyes of the people in Peach Blossom Dock, this scene was nothing special. They had already personally experienced the scene of heaven and earth collapsing, so why would they be afraid of this? It pales in comparison to a great one. The sword in Chu Liuyue's hand suddenly slashed out. A silver light blade quickly flew out. In the blink of an eye, the light blade cut into the barrier. When the crowd saw this, they were all at a loss. What was Chu Liuyue thinking? Was he planning to break the barrier by himself? However, in the next moment, everything that happened in front of them shocked them on the spot. After the light blade came into contact with the barrier, it didn't cut it open. Instead, like water, it quickly melted away. Then layers of ripples appeared on the barrier. Poof! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the light blade rushed out of the barrier again. It went straight for Nan Yifan. Its appearance was too sudden. Everyone present didn't expect that Chu Liuyue's attack could be sent out in such a manner. Moreover, the aura on the light blade didn't weaken at all. It seemed to have strengthened. Nan Yifan was also taken aback. He had already sensed the astonishing aura on it. However, at this time there was no reason to retreat. He clenched his teeth and madly urged the power in his body, pouring all of it into his fist. Clang! A crisp sound of collision was heard. The light blade struck Nan Yifan's fist with incomparable precision. Because of the protection of the purple cloud armor, Nan Yifan wasn't directly injured by the light blade. However, his situation wasn't much better. The impact of the light blade was too strong, and it directly shook his entire palm until it was numb. The power of both sides began to fiercely clash, devouring each other. At a certain moment, Nan Yifan turned his wrist. Whoosh! An ear-piercing scraping sound was heard and sparks flew everywhere. Nan Yifan took a step to the side, quickly bypassed this power and continued to move forward. His speed was extremely fast. Almost in an instant he came in front of the barrier again. He changed his fist into a claw. Sharp purple scales covered his fingertips and they were extremely sharp. He directly stretched out his hand, intending to tear the barrier apart by force. However, at this moment he suddenly heard a sharp whistle in his ear. He turned around to look and saw that the light blade that he had just avoided had also changed direction at this moment and was flying towards him at lightning speed. Nan Yifan was shocked. It could be like this. However, he didn't know that Chu Liyue had personally refined Scarlet Cloud Sword's soul, so naturally, it could do whatever it wanted. If one attack didn't work, it would come again. Nan Yifan didn't have time to think about tearing the barrier apart anymore and hurriedly dodged. Although his speed was very fast, the light blade came too suddenly. He couldn't completely avoid it. The light blade flashed quickly, and instantly left a bloody mark on his left shoulder. Excruciating pain instantly assaulted him. Nan Yifan subconsciously looked at the wound on his shoulder. An inch-long scar could be seen on it. Flesh and blood rolled. Blood gushed out and soon his clothes were dyed red. Nan Yifan held it tightly and finally couldn't help but shout, "What are you all still standing there for?" Only then did the people of the Nan family wake up from their dream and they all moved out. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. More than a dozen experts of the Nan family stood in the air one by one, facing Chu Liyue who was standing at the gate. Just as they were about to pursue, the light blade had already flown back and quietly merged into the barrier. The Nan family members missed. Nan Yifan's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Chu Liyue was simply playing with them. The people of the family Yi were watching from the side. Yi Wentao had one hand behind his back, looking calm as if he didn't intend to make a move. Many people of the family Yi looked at each other. They were not stupid. It was true that the family head came here for Peach Blossom Dock, but obviously he had some connection with the Nan family. Thinking back to when Nan Yifan suddenly came to the family Yi, what the two talked about at that time, it was almost self-evident. However, the Nan family had already made a move. Were they going to keep watching? Jun Jiuqing suddenly took half a step forward and said, "Family head, I think this time we'd better end the battle quickly." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1942. Yi Wentao turned around and glanced at him. "Oh. Peach Blossom Dock may not be a problem now, but they have many backers. The situation will only be more difficult to deal with," Jun Jiuqing said concisely. Yi Wenzhua couldn't help but nod and agree. "That's right. Big brother, not to mention the Yuntian Tower Shangguan Yu alone is difficult to deal with. The mythical beast she contracted is the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Just Chu Liyue alone wasn't enough to scare them. But the key was that she did have an extremely powerful backer. If it was delayed until then, I'm afraid," Yi Wentao pondered for a moment. It was not that he had not considered this problem. From the moment he agreed to join forces with Nan Yifan, he had already anticipated countless possibilities and the various situations he would face. Naturally, this included these. However, since he had already made this choice, it proved that he had thought it through very clearly. He knew which was more important. "Let's wait a little longer," he said. Seeing that he was still so calm, Yi Wenzhua and the others became anxious. Wait, what were they waiting for? At this time, wasn't the best choice to attack Peach Blossom Dock as soon as possible? However, no matter how everyone reacted, Yi Wentao's expression and attitude remained the same. Seeing him like this, no one said anything else. In the family almost no one had ever disobeyed his words. It was the same at this time. Wenhua frowned and wanted to persuade him again, but in the end he chose to give up and sighed helplessly. He couldn't understand what his big brother was thinking. What was there to see if the Nan family and Chu Liyue were fighting? Jun Zhouqing glanced at Yi Wentao and found that his gaze fell on Chu Liyue. He seemed to be focused. He suddenly thought of something and followed Yi Wentao's gaze. What was he looking at? Or was he waiting for something? Everyone from the Nan family moved out and began to try to break the enchantment of the peach blossom dock. For a time, all kinds of colors intertwined. The rumbling continued without end. However, no matter how they tried, the barrier remained as stable as ever. Apart from a few ripples caused by the impact of the energy, there wasn't even a single crack on it. Everyone's expression gradually turned ugly. Those who had been criticizing Nan Yifan in their hearts at the beginning finally understood why he had returned in defeat the previous 2 times he had acted. There was something wrong with this barrier. The Nan family could be considered the top aristocratic family in the Divine Ruins, but even they themselves did not dare to say that their barrier was stronger than the one in front of them. Furthermore, it was clear that this barrier was controlled by Chu Liyue alone. She could control the barrier as she pleased. No wonder it was rumored that Peach Blossom Dock is now Shangguan Yu's territory. This barrier belonged to her and was under her control. Wasn't this the same as holding the entire Peach Blossom Dock in her hands? Was there anything she couldn't do? That's really strange. She's just a supreme deity. How did she do all this? I heard that there was a riot in Peach Blossom Dock and it caused a big commotion. Since then it has been like this. I wonder what Shangguan Yu did at that time. Everyone was puzzled. They were really curious. If we can't break this barrier, are we going to waste our time like this? That would be too embarrassing. At this moment, the sound of something being torn apart was suddenly heard. Whoosh! Everyone looked over, only to see that Nan Yifan had arrived in front of the enchantment once again. He forcefully tore open the barrier with one hand and reached inside. Digression. The computer was down for a while. Let's read more first. 7 o'clock. I'll write down what I owe in a small notebook. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1943. Nan Yifan was holding a short blade in his hand. The short blade was only as long as an adult's palm. It was purple in color and had a cold luster. It was extremely sharp. Almost silently, the tough enchantment was cut open. Nan Yifan was overjoyed when he saw this. He only wanted to give it a try, but he didn't expect to succeed. The opportunity couldn't be missed. Nan Yifan immediately mobilized more power and slashed fiercely. That crack was instantly lengthened. Without any hesitation he entered in a flash. Hurry up. Everyone from the Nan family was also very excited when they saw this. They hurriedly rushed over, intending to rush in with Nan Yuxing. However, just as Nan Yifan entered the barrier, that long crack began to recover at an astonishing speed. It gathered together again. Ripples of light rippled, looking no different from the beginning. The Nan family members who wanted to follow in were immediately blocked outside and were given the cold shoulder. The few people who rushed in front tried to open the barrier again, but it was in vain. Nan Yifan heard the commotion and turned back to take a look. When he saw that the barrier had returned to normal in the blink of an eye, his eyelids twitched fiercely. A strong sense of uneasiness surged in his heart. Nan family head is really powerful, to be able to break my Peach Blossom Cove's barrier so easily. Chu Liyue's smiling voice sounded. Nan Yifan suddenly realized something and his heart sank. Oh no, he fell into a trap. He broke into this barrier alone, which was tantamount to a sheep entering a tiger's den. You cunning. Nan Yifan was enraged. Chu Liyue was still smiling. You flatter me. Compared to Nan family head's temperament and methods, I'm still lacking. These words were mocking him for killing Nan Yi for Nan Yuxing. Nan Yifan's chest felt like it had been hammered by something and he couldn't breathe. He stabbed with a backhand. Ripples appeared on the barrier, but it wasn't cut open like before. He did it on purpose before. Nan Yifan's heart was filled with hatred. He didn't expect that Chu Liyue would still be able to use such a sinister move at this time. Seeing that the barrier couldn't be opened, Nan Yifan's mind raced and he quickly made a decision. Since I'm already here, I might as well fight them to the death. Today, even if he had to pay with his life, he would absolutely not let these people have an easy time. Nan Yifan's gaze slowly swept over Luo Yan and the others, full of resentment. These 4 people had all betrayed the Nan family. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have brought them along. If that was the case, Yu Xing might not have died. Nan Yifan's heart was filled with regret and anger. Finally, his gaze fell on Chu Liyue. The culprit behind all of this was her. If looks could kill, Chu Liyue would have been riddled with holes by now. However, she had been trained over the years, so she didn't take Nan Yifan's reaction seriously. Shengguan Yu, you do have some skills. However, if you think that you can look down on everyone and be the best in the world just because of these, you are too naive. Chu Liyue explained sincerely. Patriarch Nan, you misunderstood me. I'm not an arrogant person, I don't think you're worthy of my attention. What's there to say to an enemy? If she didn't kill them, they would kill her. She would never hesitate to make such a choice. Nan Yifan gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He knew it. He shouldn't have said so much to Chu Liyue. Otherwise, in the end, he would probably die from anger before anything could happen. Arrogant to the extreme. Nan Yifan scolded sternly. If you really have the guts, fight with me. If you win, you can kill me or cut me up as you wish. If you lose, Patriarch Nan, have you been too sad about the deaths of your children that your mind has become muddled? Chu Liyue interrupted him and asked curiously. You came to me to die, but you want me to fight with you alone? Why would I agree to such a request of yours? In this situation, Nan Yifan was doomed. That was why he said those words in a moment of desperation. But Chu Liyue was not stupid. Besides, you're a god and you said those words to me, a superior god. Patriarch Nan, even if you don't feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed for you. Chu Liyue said with a faint smile. Nan Yifan's face turned red and white. He was really in a difficult situation now. Go back? The boundary couldn't be opened. Go forward? There were so many people there. Even if he was a god, he was no match for them. He was sweating profusely and his body was cold. Rong Xiu, who had been watching from the side, suddenly spoke. Patriarch family Patriarch Nan has fallen into such a situation. Are you still not going to do anything? This sentence was as cold and indifferent as usual, but it instantly silenced everyone inside and outside the boundary. Almost everyone subconsciously looked at Yi Wentao. In fact, at this time, who couldn't see his purpose of coming here? Now that Nan Yifan couldn't even protect himself, he still didn't do anything. Could it be that he was just going to watch Nan Yifan throw his life away? Yi Wentao heard this and turned his eyes slightly. He and Rong Xiu looked at each other for a moment. That pair of eyes was like a calm pool of water, soaked with a bit of coldness that made people feel cold. Yi Wentao's heart moved. He was still afraid of Rong Xiu. However, at this moment, Nan Yifan suddenly rushed toward Chu Liyue. He waved his hand and the short blade instantly flew out. A piercing pain hit him in the face. Chu Liyue's heart moved, and the armillary shield appeared in front of him. Yi Wentao's pupils suddenly shrank. Digression. Today's update is overdue. Facing the wall to reflect on one's mistakes. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1945. However, at this moment, a green figure suddenly appeared in front of Chu Liyue. At the same time, that person waved his sleeve. A palm-sized transparent jade bangle flew out from his hand. The next moment, everyone saw that the short blade that Nan Yifan threw out actually changed direction inexplicably and flew towards the transparent jade bangle. The closer it got, the slower its speed became, as if it had fallen into an invisible swamp. Ding! That short blade hit the inner edge of the transparent jade bangle, making a faint crisp sound, then completely stopped. Nan Yifan was shocked. When he threw this short blade, he used all his strength. Even if it couldn't kill Chu Liyue, logically speaking, it should be able to leave a wound on her body. One must know that this short blade was no ordinary item. Even if Chu Liyue had some ability, it would be very difficult for her to block it. In the end, not only did this thing not injure Chu Liyue, but it was also easily dealt with by another person. At the same time, a tyrannical pressure swept over. Nan Yifan was forced to stop. He immediately looked at the person who attacked, his brows tightly knitted. Zini. He remembered this person. This was Chu Liyue's subordinate. From beginning to end, he had been following Chu Liyue. Only when he went to escort Luo Yan and the others he left for a moment. However, from these matters, It wasn't hard to see that he should be Chu Liyue's right-hand man, and his status here wasn't low. It was just that, how could he be so strong? Nan Yifan's attention had always been on Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu. From beginning to end he didn't even look at Sun Yi. Until now when Sun Yi attacked. How could an ordinary person block his attack so easily? Nan Yifan began to carefully examine Sun Yi. However, Sun Yi didn't seem to care about this. With a flick of his wrist he put away the transparent jade bangle. "Let me see that short blade," Chu Liyue said. Sun Yi made a sound of agreement, handing over the dagger with both hands. Chu Liyue carefully examined the purple dagger in his hand. After a while he revealed a meaningful smile. "Patriarch Nan is really capable. You can even use the dragon scales of the great phoenix dragon race to make a weapon?" No wonder when Nan Yifan took out this thing she felt that it was somewhat familiar. This dagger was made from the dragon scales of the great phoenix dragon race. However, he didn't know what method Nan Yifan had used to get his hands on this thing. Nan Yifan's expression was cold. "It has nothing to do with you." Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows and played with the dagger. "You intended to use this thing to harm my life. How is it unrelated to me? Besides, furthermore, this dragon scale was no ordinary dragon scale. It was hard to say what other secrets were hidden here." However, Chu Liyue did not say these words out loud. Nan Yifan didn't intend to talk to Chu Liyue anymore. His expression changed. After a short pause he attacked again. From the looks of it he was determined to kill Chu Liyue. Sun Yi heard the commotion behind him and cupped his fists. "There's no need to trouble Master to do such a small thing." Chu Liyue thought for a while and nodded. "All right. I haven't seen you fight in a long time." At this point she suddenly turned around. A youth was standing at the city gate staring at them. Chu Liyue waved. 13, come here." She had sensed 13's arrival just now. However, he was very sensible and knew that the situation was complicated. He didn't go forward and just stood inside to watch. Hearing Chu Liyue's words, 13's eyes lit up and he immediately ran over. He didn't think about danger or anything. Master and Big Brother were both here. What was there to worry about? "Master?" 13 came over. He was still a little confused. He didn't know why Chu Liyue had asked him to come over. Chu Liyue raised her chin and gestured for him to stand beside the guards at the city gate. "I just stand there." 13 walked over obediently and stood still. "It's rare for your big brother to fight. It's a rare opportunity. You have to watch carefully," Chu Liyue said with a smile. 13 was delighted and quickly nodded. "Yes." Chu Liyue nodded in relief. This child was teachable. Besides, she also wanted to see how strong Sun Yi was now. On one hand she could teach 13. On the other hand she could solve the doubts in her heart. Finally she could make Nan Yifan suffer a little. Why not kill several birds with one stone? Everyone was at a loss at first, then they were shocked. At this time, Chu Liyue still had the time to think about this. Nan Yifan was also about to go crazy. The veins on his forehead were throbbing wildly. He only felt that he had been greatly humiliated. What did Chu Liyue mean by this? She didn't like him? She didn't even make a move herself and only sent one of her subordinates. There seemed to be a flame burning wildly between his chest and abdomen. Nan Yifan instantly sped up again. Sun Yi turned around and looked at the rapidly approaching Nan Yifan. Then he moved his feet and sprinted forward. From the looks of it he was planning to fight Nan Yifan head-on. Most of the onlookers had complicated expressions. Chu Liyue was too arrogant, and her subordinate had the same temperament as her. Who was Nan Yifan? The head of the Nan family. He was a top expert who had broken through to the god level decades ago. This Sun Yi looked to be in his 20s and was very young. Even if he had some strength, how could he be compared to Nan Yifan who had combat experience? This was simply courting death. Nan Yifan quickly mobilized the power in his body. In fact, after experiencing those things before, he didn't dare to let his guard down anymore. This Sun Yi could take his moves so easily, which proved that he definitely had some strength. At this moment he couldn't slack off at all. The surrounding energy of heaven and earth began to surge toward Nan Yifan. The aura on his body also became stronger. Sun Yi's long, narrow and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly. But compared to Nan Yifan there was almost no movement on his side. The distance between the two was rapidly shrinking. Nan Yifan suddenly stretched out a finger. A clear sound that seemed to come from the depths of the underworld came from afar. Underworld finger. His index finger had unknowingly turned a dark purple color, and a mysterious pattern vaguely appeared. At the same time, the Nan family totem flashed between his eyebrows. Xin Yi's expression didn't change as he directly punched out. Flowing wind fist. His fist was covered with a layer of green light that flowed slowly like water. Under the sunlight, it even sparkled and sparkled. His movements were swift and unrestrained like a gentle breeze, and it revealed an indescribable feeling of freedom. Then the two of them clashed. Boom. The power of both sides fiercely collided. Violent and unbridled energy quickly spread out in all directions. A layer of intertwined green and purple light exploded, instantly enveloping the two of them. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1946. Almost everyone's gaze landed on the two of them, eagerly waiting for the outcome. However, there was one person whose attention was not on them. That person was Yi Wentao. After seeing Chu Liyue summon the armillary heaven shield, his heart was in his mouth, waiting for her to make a move. However, he did not expect that Chu Liyue would not make a move. Instead, Xin Yi appeared out of nowhere and went against Nan Yifan. This made Yi Wentao's mood very bad. However, his expression did not change at all, and he continued to watch with an indifferent expression. Sheng Guanyu's subordinate is not ordinary. He suddenly said. Of all the times to make a move, he chose to make a move now. Moreover, based on his previous observation, this Xin Yi's strength should not be underestimated. Yi Wentao frowned. I heard that Sheng Guanyu brought him back from outside the Divine Ruins world. I didn't know that she had such a person by her side. Yi Wentao's eyesight was not weak. He had clearly seen how Xin Yi had received Nan Yifan's attack. He was certain that Xin Yi's strength was definitely not to be underestimated. However, the more it was so, the more sullen Yi Wentao felt. Chu Liyue was really too strange. Not only was she always stronger than everyone expected, but even the people she brought with her kept showing up. Every time everyone thought that they knew her well enough, she would always do something even more shocking and reveal more trump cards. Who knew that this time, suddenly, a silhouette flew out from the intertwined ball of fire. Bang! His body fell heavily to the ground. There was a muffled sound. Everyone hurriedly looked over. When they saw that face clearly, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The person who was knocked to the ground was actually Nan Yifan. At this moment he was lying on the ground, his face pale, and he kept vomiting blood. As for his index finger, it had actually been broken off. At this moment, it was drooping at a strange angle, dripping with blood. He looked like he was in a very sorry state. Everyone was stunned and they fell into deathly silence in unison. He originally thought that Nan Yifan would win for sure. Who knew that in just one round he would be defeated? Immediately after, a green figure flew out from the ball of fire. Countless gazes looked over, yet they discovered that Xin Yi, who had similarly experienced an intense battle, was actually not stained by the slightest bit of blood. He floated in midair and his green clothes were upright. The space between his brows was indifferent and cold, yet it revealed an indescribable icy cold noble aura. He looked down at Nan Yifan from above. Admit defeat? No one expected that the one to say this would actually beat Xin Yi. He was just one of Chu Liyue's subordinates. If even he was so powerful, then Chu Liyue. Nan Yifan struggled to stand up, coughing incessantly. Hearing Xin Yi's words, he spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood. How high and mighty were these three words? It was almost like a few resounding slaps on his face. Nan Yifan endured the pain coming from all over his body and looked up. A cold smile suddenly appeared on his face. Admit defeat? Dream on. As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly bit the tip of his tongue. The purple short blade in Chu Liyue's hand suddenly cracked. Crack. Chu Liyue quickly looked down. A dragon's roar suddenly came from within. Almost at the same time, the void beside Nan Yifan shook violently. A figure walked out from within. Nan family head, is there something you need from me? Nan Yifan swallowed a mouthful of blood and said word by word. Elder Fushan, you have to help me this time. Digression. It's time to compare whose backer is more powerful. Come at 6. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network.